Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to Conquer Prelims 2026. Today is the second session for international relations and security. We will be discussing the most important current affairs topics from the period July to December 2025. So basically, yesterday and today, we are attempting to cover the entire current affairs of 2025, which is extremely important for the upcoming prelims exam. So we have some very interesting topics lined up for today. We will focus on United States and the Americas region. We'll also focus on West Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Indo-Pacific, along with some important international groupings and organizations. But however, students not only need current affairs to prepare for prelims, but students also require a lot of MCQs to practice the questions and ensure that their revision is completely thorough. So, to help in your MCQ practice, we have launched a brand new initiative under Conquer Prelims 2026. We have been running dedicated practice sessions starting from today, and it's a week long session where 21 classes across subjects will take place with three sessions scheduled for every day at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. These MCQ classes, they are absolutely free for everyone, and these classes are held on the Unacademy app. The reason why we are not holding this on YouTube is primarily because we want this to be an interactive experience for the students, where students will not only get to see the questions, but we want you to attempt the answers live and even raise your doubts and questions with the educators. So on the Unacademy app, where we have a very good polling feature, it would be very convenient to discuss these MCQ questions. So please download the Unacademy app, and tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the morning, I'm taking one MCQ session based on the topics that we are discussing today. So based on the topics we are covering in this session, tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll have a detailed MCQ session with lots of practice questions so that you can revise these topics and be completely prepared for any possible question in the exam. So without fail, join me tomorrow, and the link for this session is provided in the video description below. Or else I can just guide you. You can open the Unacademy app, search for my name, Chethan N, go to the teacher's profile, scroll down, there you will see the special class section, and there you will be able to find the session as well. Apart from this, I have another important announcement. See, for preparing for prelims 2026, students need another important support through test series where you can practice full length and sectional tests. And this is what will help you simulate exam like conditions and ensure that you're thoroughly prepared for the exam. So, Unacademy has launched URTS, Unacademy Revision Test Series, a comprehensive test series program which will cover around 30 tests along with 2,500 plus questions, which are strictly in line with the demands of the prelims examination. These questions have been curated, vetted by the educators themselves. So, if you want to take part in this test series and scale up your preparation, please purchase this program now. It's a booklet which is going to be sent by the end of February. You'll also receive OMR sheets so that you can simulate the exam condition and attempt these questions. So URTS would cost you around 1,999, and those interested can click on the link provided in the description and in the pinned comment for further details. And if at all, let's say the test series doesn't help you clear the prelims exam, we provide money back guarantee as well, provided if the terms and conditions are met. So please take a look at Unacademy Revision Test Series, which is a comprehensive test series program designed to help the prelims aspirants. So with this, let's get started. Now, before we start, as I told you yesterday, if you want the PDF of this session, please join our official Telegram channel. The link is again in the description. So after the session, you will find the link to download your PDF in the video description provided. So let's get started with the first topic. Let's focus on United States. As we discussed yesterday, Donald Trump managed to remain in the news throughout the year with some of the most erratic foreign policy decisions. India has been at the receiving end of Trump's policies. And one policy which has really affected India is the immigration policy of the United States. Trump's electoral campaign was primarily based on tackling illegal migration, and strengthening the border security measures. And this became one of the key political points in the United States. So, after assuming office, Donald Trump has tightened the visa norms and unleashed a crackdown on illegal migration. So, India has faced the brunt of the impact of these consequences, and a lot of Indians were deported last year by the Trump administration. So, in this context, it's important to talk about the Indian community in the US, the size and the details of the Indian diaspora, and what is the extent of illegal migration that takes place from India to the United States. I believe these facts, these trends, and the routes that illegal migrants take can be very important for the prelims exam. Yesterday, in one of the topics, we have discussed that in the United States, the Indian diaspora is around 5.4 million strong, which is the largest Indian diaspora community in the entire world. So, out of these 5.4 million people who make up the Indian community, around 3.4 million are NRIs. Essentially, these are Indian students and the migrant workers who are studying, working in the US, and they are Indian citizens. The rest are Indian Americans, making up the Indian American community. So, in total, the Indian community makes up 1.5% to 1.6% of the US population. It happens to be one of the largest migrant community, and in total numbers, the Indian community has even overtaken the Chinese diaspora in the US. So this creates a unique leverage and influence for India as well. Because most of the Indians, they are in the United States legally on a legal valid visa, either as students or professional workers or migrant workers. The percentage of illegal population from India, though it has gone up significantly, there has been a massive surge in illegal migration from India, but still the numbers are pretty low, and the policies of the Trump administration has already impacted the illegal migrants who had entered the US. And as per the law, US has been detaining some of them, deporting them back to India. Now, when you look at the legal migrants from India, most of them are well educated. They are law abiding citizens, and they even contribute immensely to the US economy. As most of the Indians, they are in high value domains like engineering, medicine, law, and other key professions. So, as a result, Indians are a significant tax paying community which contributes to the exchequer of the state, accounting for 5 to 6% of the total taxes collected, comes just from the Indian community alone. Majority of the Indians possess higher degrees, higher education degrees, with graduation, upper graduation, or higher graduation and doctorate. And they all work primarily in the STEM domain and other key professions. So most of them are blue collared workers, contributing immensely to the American economy. But apart from this set of Indians, you do find a large number of illegal migrants, and the numbers have surged, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, particularly post COVID. And this is why United States picks up a issue with India. Obviously, any country would if there is a huge burden of illegal migration. It does put an economic strain and a social strain as well. So when you look at United States and the Indian community here, US is the top source of remittances into India. This is something we had discussed yesterday. So I would like to shed some more light and give some more facts regarding this. India right now receives close to $135 billion in inward remittances, making India the largest recipient of remittances. But let's look at the split. Which are the top three sources, the top five sources? Because this can come as a prelims question. The United States accounts for nearly 27 to 28% of the total remittances that India gets. Out of the $135 billion, 27 to 28% of it is coming from the US alone, making it the top source of remittances into India. US is followed by United Arab Emirates with around 19% share, then United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia with roughly 10 to 11% share for UK, 6 to 6.5% for Saudi Arabia. So kindly remember the top 3 to top 5 sources of remittances. Then which are the states in India which receives the maximum remittance? That again is an indicator as to the Indian migrant population, which states do they belong to in the United States. And if you look at the Indian community, right? India has a very large diaspora community of 35 million across the world. So when we take the entire Indian diaspora across the world, across countries, and calculate the remittances according to the states in the country, you will break it down into this order. Maharashtra and Kerala and Tamil Nadu are at the top three, clearly highlighting the fact that these states, they have the largest number of Indians abroad. Maharashtra receiving more than 20% of the share, Kerala almost the same, around 19 to 20%, Tamil Nadu with around 10%. Then comes Telangana and Karnataka. These are the top five states in India which receives the maximum remittance. And this again is a key fact for your prelims. So given how the topic of migration has been grabbing global headlines and it has been defining geopolitics as well, it has been impacting common people. The topic of migration and the details related to it can become very, very important for the exam. It's not easy to collate all these sources and data and information in one place. You will not find it in one website or one book. That's why I feel sessions like this would be immensely helpful to quickly cover these data pointers which could be relevant for the prelims exam. Now let's look at the migration of Indians to the US. Let's monitor the trend because UPSC is known to ask trend based questions as well. So if you take 1990 as a reference, in the US, we had less than half a million Indians back in 1990. As of 2021, this number has jumped to a staggering 2.7 million Indians. As of last year, as of 2025, the number has further jumped to 3.4 million. This is the size of the Indian migrants in the US. Now, if you add the person of Indian origin, PIOs, or the Indian American community members, the total comes up to 5.4 million. This is the size of the Indian community. Now, out of this, look at the extent of illegal migration, which has significantly increased, almost an exponential jump in the entry of illegal migrants from India into the US. You will see here that from 2019 onwards, and especially post COVID, you see a massive jump in the case of Indian illegal migrants, almost touching 1 lakh illegal migrants per year. And these are just the ones who have been detained, the ones who have been caught by US immigration authorities. So the numbers, actual numbers could be much higher than this. Many of them would have managed to sneak in and eventually they apply for asylum, trying to settle down in the country. So according to US border authorities, border and immigration control, the data shows that from 2022 to 2024, during those 2 to 3 years, almost every year, close to 90,000 to 1 lakh Indians were getting caught as they were trying to enter the US illegally. Now, this is a very, very big jump in illegal migration. So, what explains this sudden surge in illegal migration? This largely has to do with the aspiration for a better life, better livelihood, better standard of living. It is this fanciful aspiration of Indians from several parts of the country which is driving the illegal migration from India to US. Though a large number of Indians go legally as students, as professional workers, etc., number of Indians who are not eligible for legal entry, they make use of human trafficking rings and cartels. They pay exorbitant amounts of money to these human trafficking cartels and consultancies and middlemen who smuggle them into the US through trafficking routes. And this raises a very big risk for the safety of the Indians who are traveling abroad. Because they have to go through very risky routes, risking their own lives. And eventually, if they get caught, most likely they will. They will face legal consequences and eventually they'll get deported as well. So, this aspiration that you see amongst a section of Indians from few pockets of the country is what is driving large scale illegal migration to developed countries. You see a similar trend with regard to Europe, with regard to Australia as well. So, most developed countries have often complained that India has become a top source of illegal migration for their countries in the last 4 to 5 years. That is the trend you should roughly remember. You don't have to by heart these numbers. Just remember the key details, the approximate numbers, and the overall trend projections. Now, if you look at the route which Indians are taking into the United States, US border control data shows that Indians have been entering primarily through two routes. One is through the Canadian border, that is from the north, where they sneak into the US. Second is through the Mexican border, where they sneak in from the southern border into the United States. These are the two primary routes for most illegal migrants into US, including the Indian migrants. Again, the data shows you that from both regions, from both the border areas, US has received significant number of illegal migrants from India. Because Canada has, at least it used to have very relaxed visa policies. So number of aspiring Indians who may not have the higher education degrees or qualification or skills, they would make use of these middlemen and human trafficking rings to somehow procure a Canadian visa after splurging a lot of money. And from Canada, they would illegally try to cross over into the United States. Similar trend is seen where Indians enter from the south or southwest border through Mexico as well into states like California, Texas, Nevada, and the others. So this is where US has a big issue with India and it becomes a point of friction as well. So these risky routes taken by illegal migrants are often referred to as the dunkey routes, mainly because of the tremendous hardship that these migrants will have to go through. And it's not that these migrants are very poor. They will have to splurge anywhere between 50 lakhs to 1 crore and above to pay for all the middlemen and the cartels in order to take this donkey route across multiple countries, crossing multiple borders in order to finally reach the United States. In most cases, these traffickers they smuggle the Indians, the illegal migrants, either into West Asian or Southeast Asian countries first. From here, they are taken towards Africa or Europe and eventually into Latin America or Canada. And from here, they try to cross through the land borders. So, this is the circuitous, long, and difficult route that illegal migrants are risking. And they're putting their own lives at stake, their family lives at stake. Especially if you look at the Mexico route, where illegal migrants enter from the southern border of the US. Most of these illegal migrants are often taken into Latin American countries, South American countries like Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, or even into Central American countries like Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and others. So from here, the illegal migrants primarily go through the land route. And there is one location which can be very important for the exam, which is the Darien Gap. The Darien Gap that you see here in the map that I have added, this is located on the borders between Panama and Colombia. Please make a note of this point. The Darien Gap has been regularly in the news, especially in 2025. It's a very dangerous route located on the borders of Panama and Colombia. The Darien Gap is considered to be extremely hazardous and risky because there is no connectivity here, no roads. People have to trek through forests and jungles in very difficult terrain, crossing multiple rivers, and they end up risking their life itself. Many illegal migrants from different countries, could be from Syria, Libya, or could be from Venezuela, could be from Pakistan. A lot of these illegal migrants come here along with Indian migrants and they dare to cross the Darien Gap. Many of them end up losing their lives within the Darien Gap itself. It's one of the most dangerous zones. There are many criminal armed cartels operating as well who threaten the migrants and extract commissions from them. So eventually they trek their way through Central America and finally they'll reach Mexico. And even in Mexico, there are several armed cartels which extract commissions from the illegal migrants. And finally, they are pushed into the US primarily through the underground tunnels which are dug up by smugglers who smuggle drugs and other contraband into US. They use the same tunnel network to push illegal migrants into the southern states which are located in the United States. So from California, San Diego here, all the way towards Texas, Nevada, this is the region where illegal migrants try to flood into the US. So please be aware of the transit route, especially the Darien Gap and why it is risky and where it exactly is it located. Now let's look at the Indian states which are contributing to this problem of illegal migration. There are three major states which are the primary source of illegal migrants across the world. And you can see them on the map over here. This is based on data from the Ministry of External Affairs. It is these two states in northwest India and the other state here in western India. These are the top three contributors for illegal migration: Punjab, Haryana, and Gujarat. So there is a lot of fanciful aspiration in these states amongst the youth and even amongst the middle class as well. It's not that they're exactly poor, they belong to extremely poor communities. No, they are quite well off. They are at least in the middle class as far as the economic status is concerned. They even splurge, as I said, more than 80 lakhs, 1 crore and above, just to access these illegal routes and enter into developed countries. This is a blind fascination. The fascination of the West, the fascination of living abroad, working abroad, making better money, is something which is driving this trend in Punjab, Haryana, and Gujarat. Of course, unemployment, joblessness also becomes a factor, but primarily it is the falsified narrative, the glorified aspiration, which is driving this trend of illegal migration. So these are some key points that you need to note down if at all there is a question based on this particular topic. Now let's move on and cover a related topic, which is India US relations in the defense sector, which was also making a lot of headlines last year. So after Trump came into office, there have been some new changes, new upgradations in the defense sector between India and the United States. So last year, Prime Minister Modi visited the US and a lot of new deals were signed, new initiatives were launched. And India is also looking to source new advanced weapon platforms from the US. This is something you should be aware of because UPSC tends to ask questions related to defense and as well as important powers like United States and India's ties with them. So during PM Modi's visit, one of the important initiatives that was launched is the US India Compact. Compact is an acronym standing for Catalyzing Opportunities for Military Partnership, Accelerated Commerce and Technology. This platform has been created primarily to promote defense related commerce, to promote exchange of defense technology, sharing of advanced weapons technology to India, and to accelerate the sale of American weapons to India. Along with that, a joint partnership has been started for autonomous weapons and unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned robotic vehicles. It's called Asia, the Autonomous Systems Industry Alliance. This brings the private sector along with public research agencies and defense organizations together in the field of autonomous weapon systems, with primary focus on unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned boats and other forms of unmanned or autonomous weapon systems, which are being developed by defense startups, both in India and US, and also by major defense manufacturers. So, this is a joint initiative where the industry on both sides will collaborate to develop autonomous weapon systems, which could become the backbone of the defense relationship in the coming years. And also, please note down the key weapon platforms that India has already bought over the years from the US and inducted them into the armed forces. For example, we have the C-130J Super Hercules, a military transport plane that India has procured from the US, primarily for tactical airlift, to lift special forces and deploy them behind enemy lines or right into the combat zone, or even to deliver logistics. Or it could be even used to evacuate people from a conflict zone or a disaster hit zone. Then you have the C-17 Globemaster, also called the Flying Elephant, primarily because of its massive size. It's one of the largest military transport planes, and despite its size, it can land in very short runways and take off as well in very short runways. Even the C-130J has similar features. They can even land and take off in semi-prepared airstrips. They don't even need a proper airbase to land. And the C-17, primarily because of its size, it can easily airlift hundreds of soldiers or people at the same time and even carry heavy equipment inside its belly, from helicopters to battle tanks to artilleries. It can be fitted within the belly of the plane and it can easily transport hundreds of soldiers or people, thus playing a big role in military logistics to deploy troops to the front lines and even to evacuate people, civilians, from disaster hit areas. So, India relies heavily on these two military transport planes. We've also procured the P-8I Poseidon, which is known for its maritime surveillance and anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The P-8 Poseidon is also called a submarine hunter because of its capabilities to carry out maritime surveillance detect enemy submarines and even launch targeted strikes against enemy submarines. It's a key anti submarine warfare platform which India has procured primarily to counter the deployment of PLA Navy and its submarines into the Indian Ocean. So this is how US has been helping India to gain an edge over China and its military presence in the region. India has also procured advanced helicopters such as the Chinook for the army and the air force, which again provides airlift capability and logistical capability. Then the MH-60 Romeo Seahawks, which is also used for maritime surveillance and anti-submarine warfare, has been inducted into the Indian Navy. Then the Apache, one of the most advanced and lethal ground attack helicopters, procured for the Indian Army and as well as the Indian Air Force. Then India also has recently procured the Harpoon anti-ship missiles and the M777 howitzers, adding more muscle to the artillery units of the Indian Army. And recently, we have been purchasing the MQ-9B drones for all the armed forces, particularly the Air Force and the Navy. So the MQ-9B can not only be used for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, it can even be used for armed strikes. So this is how US has played a key role in India's defense modernization. But right now, India is looking at few new platforms, such as the Javelin anti-tank guided missile, which can be a game changer in case of a tank battle. And along with the Javelin, India is also looking to procure the Striker armored vehicles to secure the infantry units and enable their mobility, especially in difficult battle terrains. Along with that, India is also looking to place a fresh order of P-8I Poseidons, six new Poseidon planes for the Navy to step up maritime surveillance and anti-submarine warfare capabilities. So please make a note of these weapon systems. Just last year, there was one match the following question in which C-130J, C-17, such planes were mentioned by UPSC. So there's always a likelihood of such questions coming up. Now, apart from this, in the India-US partnership, the main focus areas are defense and advanced technology, critical emerging technologies. So in the critical emerging technology domain, in 2022, under the Biden presidency, India-US had started an initiative known as I-CET, the Initiative on Critical Emerging Technologies. So under the I-CET platform, the focus was to promote collaboration in the field of AI, quantum computing, semiconductor fabrication, advanced forms of communication like 5G, 6G, and open RAN networks, and as well as close ties in the space domain. So these were the key priorities that were identified. So under I-CET, which was launched in 2022, government research organizations, private companies, and even academia, they were being brought together through the I-CET initiative to promote research collaboration between India and United States in these cutting edge technological domains. Because these technologies it has a direct link with ongoing geopolitics. There is a geostrategic competition as far as these critical technologies are concerned. So this I-CET platform has now been replaced by the Trump administration. That is the big development you should make a note of. So I-CET has now been replaced by the Trust initiative that was launched last year in 2025. Trust stands for transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. I'll repeat my point. Trust again is an acronym, stands for transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. It has now replaced the previous I-CET initiative that was started by President Biden. So under the Trump administration, the old initiative has been replaced and it has been further expanded. So along with focusing on advanced defense technology, AI, quantum computing, clean renewable energy, semiconductors, new age communication, and space, there is a new added dimension under the Trust initiative that focuses on critical minerals and as well as on supply chains. This is a key difference between Trust and I-CET. Maybe there can be a question where the two initiatives are being compared by UPSC. How is Trust different from I-CET? The only difference is that it has focus on securing access to critical minerals and building resilient supply chains of critical strategic minerals. So, this is a new added dimension under the Trust Initiative, and everything else is just exactly the same as I-CET. Is that clear? Now, moving on, under I-CET, India US had started something known as Indus-X, the India US Defense Ecosystem Acceleration, to accelerate defense collaboration and to clear the regulatory legal hurdles in order to ensure that India could buy more American weapons and defense technology. This platform was set up under I-CET itself, called Indus-X. Now, Indus-X has been retained under the Trust Initiative. Though I-CET has been replaced, it doesn't exist anymore. Trust Initiative has taken over with a wider mandate covering critical minerals and supply chains. The previous Indus-X platform has been retained under the Trust Initiative as well to accelerate defense collaboration between the two sides. Then India-US have also launched a strategic mineral recovery partnership to basically recover critical minerals and strategic minerals through recycling in the industry. Because in electronics, automobiles, and various other sectors, a lot of critical strategic minerals which are used, once the product reaches its shelf life, the end of its shelf life, the end of its life cycle, if you can collect those products, those appliances, those gadgets and tools, and break it down in a scientific manner and collect all the critical strategic minerals and recycle it and bring it back into the production cycle, this recovery could significantly help in plugging the supply gap. And that is something India US are focused upon. If you look at India's National Critical Minerals Mission, under the National Critical Mineral Mission, for India, there are three priority areas to source critical minerals from. One is to focus on domestic exploration, ensure we fully utilize the domestic potential of the critical reserves that we have in the country. Second is to scout for foreign mines, secure mining licenses across the world, from Australia to Argentina to Chile to Democratic Republic of Congo, so that India can get hold of these foreign mines and we can set up the end-to-end supply chain through a new public enterprise called Kabil, Khanij Bidesh India Limited, which is scouting for mines across the world, trying to obtain licenses so that India can gain some supply of critical minerals from other countries so that we can diversify from our dependency from China. Right now, India has a near 100% dependency on China for some of the critical minerals like lithium and even cobalt to some extent. So, under the National Critical Mineral Mission, these priorities have been identified, which aligns with India US relations. The third major source from where India is looking to plug the gap for the supply of critical minerals is through recycling and recovery. By focusing on sustainable waste management, scientific waste management, the idea is to break down these used devices, appliances, and components, recover the critical strategic minerals, recycle it, and bring it back into the production cycle. These are the three primary sources that India is looking at under the National Critical Mineral Mission. So this initiative, the Strategic Mineral Recovery Initiative with the US, can really help India achieve the goals, as US can share the technology with India, share the best practices with India, and this could be a mutually beneficial partnership. Then apart from that, India US have another partnership called the MSP, the Mineral Security Partnership, which was launched by the Biden presidency. Initially, India was not included in it. India had been left out. Only close US allies, primarily from the developed world, were part of the Mineral Security Partnership. But almost a year later, India also has been included. And today there are 15 members, 14 countries and the European Union, including Australia, Canada, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, India, and many others. As you can see, all of them are developed, industrialized countries with their own unique capabilities. And India was added a year later after the initiative was started. So now India is a part of the MSP as well. So this partnership is focused on diversifying from China controlled supply chains for critical strategic minerals and creating resilient and parallel supply chains to protect the interests of these countries, which are aligned with the Western powers essentially. Then we also have another new initiative which has been in the news in the month of December and also in the month of January, just last week. US has launched a new initiative called Pax Silica. It was launched in December 2025, and just last week in January, India has also been invited to join the new initiative known as Pax Silica initiative. So what is this Pax Silica initiative? What is the focus? Who are the member countries? Will India join or will India decide against joining this initiative? That is something we need to discuss. The Pax Silica initiative is mainly focused on securing the supplies of all the key raw materials, including critical minerals, for advanced manufacturing logistic capabilities in the domain of AI and semiconductors. Because see, these critical emerging technologies, they are the drivers of the fourth stage of the industrial revolution. So you need these essential supplies across key sectors, from electric vehicles to batteries to clean renewable energy to defense, even in the space and aerospace industry as well. So they will play a critical role in the future of the global economy and as well as in geopolitics. China already has a dominant control over these supplies. So US is bringing its close allies together under Pax Silica initiative to secure the logistics, build up the supply chains, to focus on the key raw materials needed for semiconductor fabrication and AI related infrastructure. So to produce GPUs, graphic processing units, right? You need certain critical minerals. You need certain key technologies like lithography machines in order to uh, make those GPUs. And very few countries possess those capabilities. So under Pax Silica, which was launched just last month, US has brought together all the important countries of the Chip 4, also known as the Fab 4 Alliance. The Chip 4 or Fab 4 Alliance consists of the top chip manufacturers of the world, that includes US, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. These four countries, which are aligned together, they have common interests together. They are part of the Chip 4 Alliance or the Fab 4 Alliance, which is primarily a counter to China's dominance in semiconductor fabrication. So, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, they have their own unique capabilities. For example, look at how Taiwan's companies, there are few industries in particular, which are global leaders in semiconductor fabrication. Same with South Korea, Japan. They have unique capabilities. They have the capacity to scale up production to massive levels, right? So does US with sufficient technology and fabrication facilities. So they are part of the Chip 4 alliance, and all the Chip 4 members are part of Pax Silica. So US, Japan are part of it. Taiwan is an observer, given the fact that Taiwan is not a recognized country, right? And there's a standing dispute between China, Taiwan. It has been added as an observer along with Canada and European Union and the OECD. These are the observers to Pax Silica initiative. Then look at the other members who are participating here. They all bring unique capabilities and unique resources into this grouping. For example, Australia is a part of it. Australia is a country blessed with critical resources, particularly lithium, even copper and cobalt. And it can be a leading producer and exporter of key components that are needed for semiconductor chips and as well as AI related infrastructure. Then look at Netherlands. It might be a small European country, but Netherlands is indispensable even for US and China when it comes to producing GPUs, the graphic processing units you need to set up AI data centers. Because there's only one company in the world called ASML, which produces the lithography machines which can help in fabricating the GPUs. No other company, no other country in the world currently possesses the capability. So, in that way, Netherlands becomes extremely significant for the AI industry, as there's only one company producing those lithography machines which can help in fabricating GPUs. So, Netherlands is a part of Pax Silica. Then you also have Singapore. Singapore is also a major chip manufacturer. It's a finance hub and it's a major transshipment hub because of its port facilities near Malacca Strait. So Singapore is also a part of it. Then Israel, which is a pioneer in AI and semiconductors, is also a part of it. Then even West Asian powers like United Arab Emirates and Qatar, they primarily bring the funds that are required. And today UAE is looking to focus heavily on AI and that essentially ensures that these West Asian powers also get a seat at the Pax Silica initiative. And of course, you have United Kingdom, which always has been a leading power in innovation, and it has a significant edge in artificial intelligence. So amongst these group of elite countries, India was initially neglected. It was not invited to the Pax Silica initiative when it was launched last month. So after a month, India has now been invited just last week, and India is yet to decide whether it will join the initiative or not. Because see, there are both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, of course, by being part of Pax Silica, it's clearly an anti-China initiative to counter China's dominance. So India will essentially benefit by working with the initiative to counter China and to create alternate supply chains for us. But however, this could become a dependency as well. Given the fact that India is many steps behind when it comes to semiconductor fabrication, chip production, and AI infrastructure, the other countries could have a dominant role within the initiative, and India might end up becoming dependent on them, which also creates its own complexities. So India is carefully weighing its options, whether to join Pax Silica or not. But most experts believe India is likely to join the initiative. India would stand to benefit eventually. Of course, there will be some downside risks, but overall, India might stand to gain by joining the Pax Silica initiative. This topic is also extremely important for the exam. Now, let's look at a related topic. Panama withdrawing from Belt and Road Initiative. So this is another key development. There are some interesting pointers to discuss here. So the fact is, why did Panama withdraw from Belt and Road Initiative? What is the Belt and Road Initiative in the first place? Right? So that is something we'll discuss in detail. So China, under President Xi Jinping, launched the ambitious Belt and Road Initiative in 2012-2013. It's essentially a global connectivity project that China is pursuing to connect Chinese ports and markets with global markets, especially in Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. So China is focused on two components as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. There is a land-based component and a sea-based component. The land component is called the Silk Road Economic Belt. So this seeks to connect China with all the major countries present in Asia, Europe, West Asia, and Africa. Countries like Nepal, Myanmar, Pakistan, Central Asian countries, Russia, and all the way towards Iran, Turkey, and Europe. So, as part of the land based trade network that China is building, China is investing in road and rail infrastructure. It is setting up power plants. It is securing access to mines, oil and gas fields. It is also establishing special economic zones and industrial clusters. It is establishing pipelines to transport the oil and gas, including digital pipelines for high speed internet and data connectivity. So, all such infrastructure is being established with Chinese funds and Chinese involvement, creating significant economic and strategic influence for China across these countries. The second component of BRI, which is the maritime component, is called the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road Initiative. It's known as the 21st Century MSR Initiative, Maritime Silk Road Initiative. The objective is to connect all the strategic Chinese ports, which are primarily located in the east coast of China, link these coast or coastal cities or port facilities with all the strategic ports that China is building across these countries. China has invested heavily in ports like Colombo, Hambantota, Chittagong, and Mongla in Bangladesh, Pyokfu in Myanmar. It has taken up port projects across Southeast Asian countries. It's playing a key role in the Gwadar project of Pakistan as part of the CPEC corridor, China Pakistan Economic Corridor. It is also investing in Iranian port infrastructure, in Oman, in United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia. So, across West Asia, China has created a big presence for itself. Then, also across Horn of Africa and East Africa, from Kenya to Tanzania to Mozambique, across the Indian Ocean countries, such as Maldives and others. So China is creating a big presence for itself. It has even set up a foreign military base in Djibouti over here near the strategic Bab el Mandeb Strait. Bab el Mandeb is a strategic choke point, as you can see here, that connects the narrow Red Sea corridor with the Gulf of Aden, which is a very vital trading route that connects Europe with rest of Asia. So China's presence through such port projects has grown, and apparently it has pushed many countries into a debt trap as they borrowed heavy loans from China. And this is often referred to as China's debt trap diplomacy. Countries like Sri Lanka, they have struggled to repay the loans, and eventually China gets control over these key projects, which become commercial failures. So China has gained control over the Hambantota port in southern Sri Lanka. It has gained a 99-year lease, and a Chinese company is operating the terminals at Hambantota, giving it strategic access and presence. Many countries believe that this could be turned into a dual use facility where China could potentially turn a commercial port into a probable military facility for the Chinese Navy and as well as for Chinese intelligence vessels. For example, recently, Chinese spy vessels such as the Dongwon 5, they were spotted in Sri Lankan waters, docking at ports like Hambantota and Colombo, creating a scare for India as they can spy on India's satellite and missile launches. So this remains a persistent threat. It's also believed that as part of the project, China is encircling India with strategic ports like Gwadar, Colombo, Hambantota, Chittagong, Mongla, and Kyokfu. Try and encircle India. And this strategy is often referred to as the string of pearls strategy of China. So this in brief is the Belt and Road Initiative. India was supposed to be a part of it. Initially, when the plan was conceptualized, China wanted India to be a part of it. But India has rejected the project. India has boycotted the Belt and Road, mainly because the CPEC project, China Pakistan Economic Corridor, it violates India's sovereignty. The CPEC route from Gwadar to Xinjiang passes through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, including the Shaksgam Valley, which Pakistan has leased to China through the 1963 Sino Pak Boundary Agreement. The Shaksgam Valley has been recently in the news as India has rejected China's control and presence at Shaksgam Valley, and China even tried countering it. This is another key topic. The locations I'm mentioning, right? And all the projects which are part of BRI is something which is going to be important for your exams. So since CPEC passes through Shaksgam Valley and Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is Indian territory, this project is a direct violation of Indian sovereignty. That's why India has rejected the Belt and Road Initiative itself, and we have boycotted the initiative. So in our neighborhood, all the neighbors of India have joined Belt and Road Initiative except for Bhutan. So if you take South Asia, except for India and Bhutan, all the other neighbors have joined Belt and Road Initiative. Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, then Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Maldives, all of them, they've joined China's Belt and Road Initiative, except for Bhutan. This is another important fact for your prelims. Then, just like China Pakistan Economic Corridor, which connects Xinjiang province of China with Gwadar port and Karachi, on the eastern side of India, there is a similar corridor called the China Myanmar Economic Corridor. The China Myanmar Economic Corridor, which connects the Yunnan province of China with the strategic Kyokfu port of Myanmar that faces Bay of Bengal. Now, these critical projects will allow China to bypass the Malacca Strait, reduce its dependency on the Malacca Strait, which is a weak point, a strategic choke point for China, especially for its oil imports from West Asian countries. So China can bypass Malacca Strait. It need not depend on Malacca because it can directly access Indian Ocean through China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, reaching Bay of Bengal, or through China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, directly reaching the Hormuz Strait and Persian Gulf. That's why these two projects are critical components of the Belt and Road Initiative. So China has expanded this initiative towards Latin America as well, making big investments in Peru, Ecuador, in other South American countries, and across the Caribbean region, including in Central America. Now, I'll give you one small homework, a small exercise for you. Please find out China's major port investments in Peru and in Ecuador. China has been making some big investments here, which is being resisted by United States because US considers the Americas region as its backyard, the Western Hemisphere. And China has been able to build up considerable presence and influence through such strategic investments. Now, coming back to the Panama Canal topic. Since US has threatened Panama under Donald Trump has even threatened that US will not hesitate to engage in military action against Panama to take back control over the Panama Canal, which is of great strategic significance. On the other hand, China has been slowly stepping up its presence, access, and influence across this region, which is considered as a threat by the United States. So this is where Panama gets caught between United States and China in the great power competition. So you can see Panama here, a key Central American country that forms a link between South America and the rest of Central and North America. So it is located over here, bordering Colombia and Nicaragua to the north, and it is separated by the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, which is part of the Atlantic. So when you look at shipping in the Americas region, traditionally, before the Panama Canal was built, ships had to circumnavigate around South America, which was a very long and circuitous route, especially for shipping American goods from East Coast to West Coast and vice versa. The long circuitous route around South America had to be taken as there is no gap in between North and South America and Central America. This is a very longer route, almost taking a month in shipment, increasing the time and cost of transportation, complicating the logistics. So the strategic Panama Canal, which was built in early 1900s, it was built between 1903 and 1914 with direct participation of United States. The United States helped Panama directly. First, it helped Panama to liberate itself from Colombia. Colombia had essentially controlled Panama for decades. US played a direct role in helping Panama to assert its independence. And using that influence, it funded the construction of the Panama Canal. Because as you can see in the map, Panama is essentially a isthmus, a narrow piece of land separating two large water bodies, the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So it would be very easy to dig up a small man-made canal through such a isthmus and create a channel through which ships can pass through. So the Panama Canal, constructed by 1914, which became operational, became a vital turning point in the history and economy of the Americas region. In a way similar to the Suez Canal in Egypt, how it transformed connectivity between Indian Ocean and Europe. A similar effect was there with Panama Canal. So it significantly cut the transportation time, as you can see here. The transportation time between west and east coast of US falls to under 2 weeks, sometimes taking just 9 to 10 days, maximum 11 days. So this is a significant advantage to the US economy. And for many decades, US has controlled the operations at Panama Canal. It not only funded the construction and carried out the construction, it operated the canal as well. The strategic ports which are located here, they were operated initially by US companies. US military used to be present defending the canal many decades ago. So if you look at the significance of Panama Canal, nearly 5 to 6% of global trade passes through it, which is a significant volume of global trade. Almost 40% of American container traffic passes through the Panama Canal each year. 40% of US container cargo passes through the Panama Canal. So the American economy is dependent on it, and the stability, security of the canal directly depends or it directly influences the economic and national security of United States. So that is the reason why Donald Trump has been making these aggressive attempts to take back control over Panama. So how did US lose control over Panama? There's a very interesting point, a historical fact which can be important for the exams. So after US played a role in the construction and initial operation of the canal, this continued until 1977. From 1914 to 1977, US exercised full control over Panama Canal in collaboration with the government of Panama. But in 1977, then US President Jimmy Carter, he signed the Torrijos-Carter treaties of 1977, which today Trump criticizes of compromising American interests. Through this agreement, the United States gave up operational control of the canal, and essentially a government company of Panama government started operating the Panama Canal. US only had a military role, and it was cooperating the Panama Canal with the Panamanian authorities. So US role and influence reduced after the Torrijos-Carter's Treaty of 1977, because through the treaty, US relinquished some of its operational control because it became a cooperator of the canal with the authorities of Panama, and it only played a military role from 1977 to 1999. So they cooperated the Panama Canal, and US played the role of defending the Panama Canal using military presence if required. This presence completely ended in 1999. US control and US presence completely stopped in 1999, and US fully retreated from the Panama Canal. So this is the main criticism that Donald Trump has against then President Jimmy Carter, and he is very critical of the 1977 agreement. So now, under the Trump administration, the US perceives a strategic threat from China because there is a Hong Kong based company, a very popular container management company, is involved in the world of maritime shipping. It's a very popular name, the CK Hutchison Holdings. It's a global giant known for managing container traffic, shipping terminals, ports, etc. And it's a Hong Kong based company. Now, US allegation is that since Hong Kong based companies are controlling the critical ports at Panama Canal, potentially the Chinese government can influence the company and create a disadvantage and a threat for United States. Because see, in China there is a national security law which was recently introduced a few years ago, which now extends to Hong Kong. Hong Kong, though it had its autonomy, political autonomy, through the national security law, Beijing now exercises direct security control over entities based out of Hong Kong. So there is a fear in US that companies like CK Hutchison Holdings could be controlled by the Communist Party to create a strategic advantage for China. Now look at the map here, it's very important for the exams. I will be highlighting two strategic ports that are located on either ends of Panama Canal. You should know where exactly it is located and which ocean does it face. You have the Balboa port over here facing the Pacific Ocean, located on the western side of the Panama Canal. When you come to the eastern side, facing the Atlantic Ocean, the port of Cristobal. These two ports are critical for ships to enter and leave the Panama Canal. And both the ports, Cristobal and Balboa, are operated by CK Hutchison Holdings. The same company operates both the ports, the CK Hutchison Holdings. And this is the reason why United States perceives this as a strategic threat. So based on Trump's threats to attack Panama, to take over Panama and regain control over Panama Canal, there has been a lot of fear within Latin American governments. And as you saw, United States is not holding back, as you saw in Venezuela, which we'll study in the coming classes. So Panama was one of the initial countries in Latin America which had joined Belt and Road Initiative as early as 2017. Please write this down. Panama was one of the first Latin American countries to join China's Belt and Road Initiative and to see investments from China in the port infrastructure sector. So now, under American pressure and American military threats, Panama has decided to retreat and exit the Belt and Road Initiative. So it has become the second country in the region to quit Belt and Road Initiative. Brazil was the first country, now Panama. Both these countries, under American pressure, they have exited China's Belt and Road Initiative. Coming to the next topic, the global race for copper. Copper is a critical mineral and there is intense geopolitical competition which is breaking out to compete for copper resources. This topic is quite specific to India. What is India doing to secure its copper supplies? Because last year there was a big development in the world of international relations. India has secured a massive mining facility in the country of Zambia. And where is Zambia located? It's a African country in Central Africa, closer to southern and eastern parts of Africa. That's where Zambia is located. It's a resource-rich country. It is said to have the seventh largest reserves. It is considered as the seventh largest producer of copper in the world. So through Ministry of Mines, India has gained access to a huge mining block that spans around 9,000 square hundred kilometers in the African country of Zambia. This was a big breakthrough for India to secure the supplies of not just copper, but even the supply of another critical strategic mineral, which is cobalt. So, copper finds application across various important industries, from electronics to electric vehicles, defense, space and aerospace. It has many vital applications in the emerging industries, including artificial intelligence and semiconductor fabrication. Cobalt also has key applications in batteries, in electric vehicles, automobile sector, and many, many other industries. So in Zambia, there are massive deposits of copper, cobalt, and other key minerals, including gold. So India has secured a key mine which is rich in copper and cobalt reserves. Now let's quickly understand the geopolitical dimensions and the key pointers and facts needed for your prelims exam. See, as far as copper supply is concerned, China right now has more than 50% control over the smelting and refining capacity. Just imagine that for a second. Out of the entire world's production of copper, more than 50% is under China's control. Though China has very limited copper deposits, it has been able to access global mines across the world, making investments over there, and it controls more than half of the smelting and refining capacity, thus occupying a critical position in the global supply chain of copper. So, this is the challenge for countries like India. Given how important copper is and even cobalt is for the current emerging and critical industries, it's absolutely essential to secure the supplies and ensure that you don't depend on countries like China. Now, the problem for India is that our domestic production of copper is very limited and restricted. India does have copper deposits. There are few important mines in Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, etc. For example, the K3 copper deposits in Rajasthan. There are key deposits in India, but the sector is monopolized by public sector, the Hindustan Copper Limited, and its ability to produce copper is declining year on year. Also, a lot of existing copper deposits are not even properly explored in India. So, to carry out further exploration, detailed studies, and eventually commercialize the mines, it will at least take 15 to 20 years. And India can't wait. By that time, the world would have moved on, right? That is why India is focusing on overseas acquisition of copper. Though there is some extent of domestic production to some small extent, what we have is not sufficient. And also, the copper found in India, at least what is mined right now, it's of a lower grade compared to copper deposits in other countries. You need high grade copper for these key industries like electric vehicles, batteries, electronics, etc. So, most copper which is mined in India is of a lower grade, which doesn't find much application. That is the reason why India is trying to diversify, look at foreign sources. And India is working with important countries that have major deposits of copper. So, which country is the top producer of copper? It is the South American country of Chile. Chile is the world's number one copper producer. Please remember this point. Then, traditionally, Peru is considered as the second largest producer, with Democratic Republic of Congo being the third largest producer. But however, recently there has been a slight change. Some reports indicate that DRC has overtaken Peru. It has overtaken Peru to emerge as the second largest producer, pushing Peru to the third position. Clear? These are the top three producers: Chile, DRC, and Peru. Please remember this. And Zambia is considered as the seventh largest producer. That is the reason why India securing these mining blocks of copper and cobalt in Zambia is strategically very, very important for us. So, where exactly are these mines located? There might be a map based question as well. And you should also be familiar with the neighboring countries of Zambia, its exact location in Africa. So, Zambia is bordered by Tanzania, DRC, Angola. It shares a small corridor here with Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi. And most of the copper cobalt deposits, they are in the Yungu deposit that can be found in the northwestern part of Zambia. It is primarily located in the northwestern stretch, in the northwestern stretch, approximately here, approximately over here, right, where it shares borders with DRC. This is where massive copper, cobalt, and even gold deposits are found. So the Yungu deposit is where India has secured the mining access for a 9,000 square kilometer mining block. Now, moving on, let's talk about a topic related to the Kurd community and some of the related geopolitics in West Asia from where prelims questions can be asked. This is another interesting topic, very important development. Last year, a Kurdish militia known as the PKK has agreed to surrender and end its 4 decades old insurgency against Turkey or Turkey. So, the end of Kurdish insurgency against Turkey is a very big development. And there are Kurdish related topics connected with Syria, what's happening in Syria as well. So, let me discuss about both the topics so that we cover all the key locations and the key facts which are relevant for the prelims exam. If you have seen previous question papers, UPSC always has a liking for regions located in West Asia, conflict zones in West Asia. Same with Africa as well. So we can't neglect or ignore these topics. So who are the Kurds and what is this PKK? The PKK stands for Kurdistan Workers' Party. It's an armed militant group, an insurgent group founded in 1983-84, fighting for Kurdish independence under its legendary leader, Abdullah Öcalan. You can see him in the image here. This is the image of a young Abdullah Öcalan. He has been arrested and he remains in a Turkish jail. He has spent many, many years in jail, more than 20-25 years. So finally, Turkey has been able to pressurize Abdullah Öcalan and push him to end this insurgent movement. So, from a Turkish jail, Abdullah Öcalan gave a call for ending the Kurdish insurgency of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, and now PKK has agreed to completely surrender and disarm, which will bring one of the oldest insurgent militant movements to an end. So, who are the Kurds exactly? The Kurds are an ethnic community found in West Asia. They're spread across different countries. They're found in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and even in small parts of Armenia. This is the region where you find the concentration of the Kurds. UPSC has already asked a match the following type question on the Kurd community. 2 years ago, there was a question on Madhesis, Rohingyas, and Kurds, and to which country they belong to. So, since the topic is relevant, UPSC has already picked it. There can be questions related to Kurdish insurgency and the topics related to Turkey and Syria, where recent developments have taken place. So, as far as insurgency against Turkey is concerned, see, Turkey has always tried to crush the Kurdish insurgency. Turkey is even accused of using brutal force, committing human rights violations, especially under current president Recep Erdogan. And PKK, which has been almost neutralized, weakened. Finally, its leader, Abdullah Öcalan, who is in Turkish jail, has given a call for ending the movement and he has agreed that the group will surrender, lay down their arms, and disarm themselves. So, this is one part of the development, right? This explains the idea behind the Kurdistan movement. These Kurdish militants, they have been fighting this armed struggle to liberate the Kurd areas and form a separate country, which they refer to as Kurdistan. Now, there is another related development which is connected to what's happening in Syria, and it is still making news as recently as last week. The Kurds found in Syria are mainly concentrated in the northeastern part of Syria, which is rich in oil fields. Now, I want you to pay attention, listen to me carefully. Before 2024, when Bashar al Assad was in power, the Syrian dictator from the minority Alawite Shia community, who was a close ally of Iran, Russia, China, he has been dealing with a civil war for several years from 2011. So, as Assad lost control in Damascus, as the Syrian rebels, who were primarily backed by US, Israel, and the Sunni powers as part of the regional rivalries, Assad, who had been weakened, who was losing territorial control, he received a lot of support from Russia and Iran, which helped in propping up Assad's regime by 2015 2016. So, after losing significant territory in the civil war, which started from 2011, by 2016, Assad's regime had slightly stabilized, all thanks to Russian military support. Russia deployed its troops, its private mercenaries, intelligence agencies, because Russia has a key naval base that is located over here. This gives Russia access to the strategic Mediterranean Sea via Syria. So near Tartus, there is a critical Russian naval base which is located. That was one prime reason why Russia got directly involved to stabilize Assad's regime. So as Assad's regime was getting stabilized, in neighboring Iraq, there had already been decades of instability, especially after 2003, after the American illegal invasion of Iraq. Iraq had become completely destabilized with no proper government, no law and order. So, this entire region that you see here in the map became a fertile ground for extremist groups, including factions of Al Qaeda and other extremist organizations. So, this is where the notorious ISIS or Islamic State was born by 2014 and became extremely notorious by 2015 2016. So, Islamic State was a common threat for multiple stakeholders in the region. ISIS was a threat for Syria's Assad. It was a threat for Russia and Iran. It was a threat for US and even the Sunni powers as well. So to fight ISIS, to defeat ISIS, Russia launched a war where Russia got directly involved again through military support to back Assad's regime, and they decimated ISIS stronghold areas in Syria and in parts of Iraq as well. So when Russia was parallelly fighting Islamic State, the Americans fought a covert war against Islamic State, where the CIA would support the Kurdish militia known as YPG, which is a Kurdish militia, insurgent group operating in northeast Syria. So, just like we have the PKK operating primarily in Turkey and the region around it, the Turkish threat was from another Kurdish group called YPG operating in northeast Syria. So, there are two major Kurdish militant groups, PKK and YPG. So these Kurds were mainly armed, financed by the US, as the Kurds are seculars. They don't believe in the radical ideology of ISIS and other groups. So ISIS was a common threat for everyone. So while Russia fought against ISIS with the help of Assad, Iran, and others, even Hezbollah and others, parallelly, US it backed the Kurdish groups such as YPG to defeat Islamic State. And by 2018-19, ISIS was almost wiped out in the region. By then, Assad's regime also had become stable. So, Syria's Assad, who established his control again, thanks to all the support he had got, he struck a deal with the Kurds, with the YPG, which is now known as the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. The Kurdish militia, they have taken on a new name. They call themselves Syrian Democratic Forces. So, Assad gave them autonomy in this region. Regional autonomy was given to them so that Kurdish rights can be protected because they played a key role in fighting against ISIS. So they would be a buffer against the revival of Islamic State. and it also gave the Kurds control over the strategic oil fields that are located in northeast Syria. This was the situation pre 2024, right? But from 2024, things have completely flipped. Turkey, which saw the opportunity, because see, Russia was distracted with the Ukraine war. Iran had already suffered major setbacks against Israel. Iran's proxies had been almost wiped out: Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen. So all the Iranian proxies had almost been decimated by Israel from 2023 onwards. Russia was already distracted. So essentially, Assad was alone. He was isolated. He couldn't rely on Hezbollah to come to his support, or Iran or Russia to come to his backing. So, utilizing this opportunity, what Turkey did, it backed a very quick uprising by supporting an extremist group known as HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and also the Syrian rebels who were cornered in this region. In this part of Syria, the Syrian rebels who had triggered the civil war against Assad's government, they had been cornered in this region around Idlib, Aleppo, etc. Aleppo also is under Kurdish control, under the SDF. So here Turkey sponsored Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, and the Syrian rebels. And in 2024 December, they quickly ran through the country and toppled Assad's regime, and Assad has now fled the country. Right? This is the brief background. Now, why did I discuss all of this? In the process, you would have understood about key locations and the importance of the Kurd groups in this region. So if at all there is a prelims question, you will be able to answer it. Now, recently, there is a development involving SDF. The HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which has captured power today, its leader, Mohammad al-Julani, was formerly a Al-Qaeda terrorist. He has now become the Syrian president under a new name, Ahmad al-Shara. Even the United States has welcomed this new president, though he was a former Al-Qaeda terrorist. Right? US has been engaging with Syria, which again exposes the American hypocrisy. Right? Because see, parallelly, US has funded Al-Qaeda at one point in Iraq as well, when they were mainly fighting ISIS and dealing with the conflict in Iraq. So there's a history of American involvement with extremist groups in this region, right? But again, that aside, right now Trump is engaging with Ahmad al-Shara. He has even met with Ahmad al-Shara, and the Syrian government under HTS is now being stabilized and organized. So for them, the threat is the autonomous region of the Kurds, which is northeast Syria, which is under SDF control, under Syrian Democratic Forces. So over the last 3 weeks, fresh fighting broke out between Syrian government forces under Ahmad al-Shara and the Syrian Democratic Forces. So SDF has now been pushed back and they are losing control. According to reports, they have lost Aleppo and they have even lost Kamishli, Raqqa. These are important places. Please make a note of the locations. Homs, Palmyra. You should know in which country it is located. That's why I'm trying to discuss the topics here. So now HTS has almost pushed out the Kurds and the Syrian Democratic Forces, and it's almost taking over the entire northeast region, which means this could be the death of the Kurdish movement. With PKK surrendering against Turkey, YPG and SDF being dismantled by the Syrian government, most likely this is the death of the Kurdish insurgency. So that's why the topic is very relevant. Now, coming to other developments in West Asia, the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities by Israel and United States. So here we'll mainly focus on the locations and also some of the regions which are present where you can expect prelims questions. So as tensions rose between Israel and Iran, Israel launched massive strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities last year. It struck multiple locations, including the nuclear facilities located near the capital, Tehran. It tried bombing the Fordo nuclear enrichment plant, but Israel could not damage this facility as it is protected, shielded under a mountain. It is an underground structure which is very well fortified by Iran. Israel doesn't have the bunker busting bombs to cause any damage to the deep sites which are located under the mountain structures. Apart from that, Israel bombed Natanz enrichment facility as well. Even though this is an underground facility, some limited damage was caused by Israeli strikes. It also struck Shiraz, where major air defense systems of Iran are located, along with a power plant. It struck the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center, where the nuclear material is converted into weapons grade fuel and mated with the warheads. So, a lot of key facilities are located here in Isfahan. So, all these critical sites in Iran were struck by Israeli airstrike. Of course, Iran retaliated, but Iran's retaliation was quite limited. But very soon, United States joined the conflict. Under President Trump, the US carried out lethal airstrikes against Iran, and it raised the prospect of a full-fledged, full-blown conflict in the region. So US also carried out bombing of Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. But US strikes were much more effective. Though Israel had managed to target command centers, minor facilities, and air defense systems, the US strikes managed to cause significant damage to even the underground nuclear facilities. That's because the US deployed its strategic B 2 bombers, and they dropped bunker busters, which is also called the mother of all bombs, the GBU 57, the massive ordnance penetrator, the MOP. It's one of the most powerful and largest conventional bombs ever built. It is possessed only by the United States. It is designed to be a bunker buster, to penetrate several feet underground. Reports say it can even strike targets almost 100 feet underground and cause significant damage. So, GBU 57, or the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, they were used and dropped by the B 2 strategic bombers, causing significant damage to even the underground nuclear facilities of Iran. So facilities like Fordo Enrichment Plant, the Natanz Enrichment Complex, and the Nuclear Technology Center at Isfahan, they've all suffered critical damage, according to claims by the United States. So please remember the locations and also other key cities of Iran, given that lots of protests have been taking place against the conservative radical regime of Iran in the last few days, right? And Iran has been crushing these protests violently, killing innocent civilians. According to reports, anywhere between 5,000 to 15,000 civilians might have been killed. So, given the tensions which are prevalent and the possibility of US Israel launching another attack, Trump has said that if Iran continues to target civilians, US might consider a military invasion or a strike. Israel has been waiting to utilize the opportunity to try and topple the Ayatollah's regime. So, all the locations present here, the cities and these nuclear facilities of Iran, can be relevant for the prelims exam. Now, let's quickly talk about the geography as well. Why? Because if you saw the previous two maps, you would have noticed almost all Iran's cities and key centers are located in the western part of Iran. So maybe UPSC will ask you a geography based question related to geopolitics. Why Iran's population, economy, and even the presence of the government is primarily concentrated in western Iran, whereas eastern Iran is barely populated? The answer lies in geography of the country. Iran is a very large country, but look at its physical geography. In the western parts of Iran, you have the Zagros mountain range that runs in this direction, in a northwest southeast direction. And also you have the Elburz or the Alborz mountains in the northern part of Iran. Elburz, also known as the Alborz. These are two massive mountain ranges that dominate the western and northern parts of Iran. Now, when you have such mountain ranges, this is where rivers will be present, sufficient water will be available, the soil, especially in the valleys, right, in the plains, will be fertile enough for agriculture. That is the prime reason why Iran's population is primarily concentrated in western Iran. I mean, it's a very stark contrast. Western Iran is heavily populated, eastern Iran is very sparsely populated. The difference is very, very clearly evident because western Iran has better favorable climate, right? It has better availability of water, fertile soil, and the right conditions for human habitation. Whereas in eastern Iran, you have arid and desert areas which are almost uninhabitable. So please note down the deserts as well. Dasht-e-Tawir. It's one of the largest deserts in the region. Very harsh conditions in this region here. And Dasht-e-Lut. Clear? Then you should also be aware of Sistan Balochistan province over here, which extends from Pakistan's Balochistan province. You find the Baloch community here. There is an active insurgency here as well against Iran from some of the Baloch groups, which are allegedly sponsored by Pakistan. And this is the Makran coast that extends from Balochistan of Pakistan towards Sistan Balochistan. Right? This is where Gulf of Oman, the strategic Strait of Hormuz, the most key choke point in the world, and the Persian Gulf is also located. Clear? So be aware of locations like Shiraz, Bushehr, Esfahan or Isfahan, Qom. All these important places, they are frequently in the news. Along the Makran coast in Sistan Balochistan, this is where the Chabahar port of India is located, which we studied yesterday. The Chabahar port of India is right here on the Makran coastline in the Sistan Balochistan region. Then this is Bandar Abbas near Hormuz Strait, which is part of the INSTC project, the International North-South Transport Corridor. So these are some key locations. And also remember the neighboring countries of Iran, countries like Turkmenistan, Afghanistan here, right? Pakistan, of course. Then it also shares borders with Azerbaijan, Turkey. It has a very small corridor which we will study with Armenia. Then Iraq, right? These are the major countries with which it has land borders, and it shares maritime borders with the Gulf states like Kuwait, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Saudi, etc. All right, so please be familiar with all the locations and the geographical features. Now let's talk about the transport corridor, which is available between Iran and Armenia, which is being developed into a major international connectivity project. This topic was also in the news, dominating headlines last year. So here in this map, you can see Iran, right? You can see Turkey, you can see Armenia, Azerbaijan. Now, I'm sure all of you might be aware of the recent conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh region that dates back to the Soviet era, right? Both were part of the Soviet Union, and post 91, they've had their differences with regard to the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Armenia considered this to be its enclave surrounded by Azerbaijan, and they fought multiple wars over it. Recently, in 2023, Azerbaijan delivered massive blows to Armenia and it fully captured Nagorno-Karabakh region. Azerbaijan was able to defeat Armenia mainly because of the support it got from Turkey and as well as from Pakistan. That's why Azerbaijan is pro-Pakistan in its policies, and it even takes an anti-India position on issues like Kashmir and internal matters of India. It takes a stand against India to favor Pakistan. So there is a axis between Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan. Yeah. Now, after taking over Nagorno-Karabakh, all the Armenians who were there in the enclave, this is the Nagorno-Karabakh region, they all fled back into Armenia through a narrow corridor known as the Lachin Corridor. The Lachin Corridor is a narrow land route which connected Armenia with the Nagorno-Karabakh enclave. So after Azerbaijan captured it in 2023, the Armenians who were left, they all fled back into Armenia through this narrow corridor, which is the Lachin Corridor. Okay, that's one important corridor which was in the news. Apart from that, there's another important corridor, the Zangezur Corridor, that connects Iran with Armenia. You can see here how Armenia becomes a narrow stretch of land. And it's this narrow border that Iran has with Armenia, which is the Zangezur Corridor. But if you focus closely, Azerbaijan also have an exclave territory on the other side of Armenia. It is this part which I'm talking about. This is the Nakhchivan exclave. This is a Azerbaijan territory, and Azerbaijan doesn't have direct access to it because in the middle there is Armenia and the Zangezur corridor, which separates mainland Azerbaijan from its exclave, which is Nakhchivan. So Iran and Armenia were considering to build a transport route via the Zangezur corridor. But before that, Donald Trump, who has played a role, he has launched a new initiative. And he has essentially swung this entire region in favor of the US, which is significantly weakening Russian influence in this region. Russia has been backing Armenia, though it has influence with both Azerbaijan and Armenia. It has been sidely, on the side of Armenia, because mainly Turkey has been backing Azerbaijan as a NATO ally. This is obviously a threat for Russia's interests. So there is that regional covert proxy kind of a war between these powers. So now Donald Trump, who acted as a mediator, right, who claims that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, he proposed a new trade route and a corridor as he mediated a peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan in 2025. In the entire list of these fires that Mr. Trump has apparently negotiated and worked out, Armenia Azerbaijan peace deal was one of them. So, as part of the peace deal, he has proposed a trade route, a connectivity corridor to help Azerbaijan to connect with its exclave, the Nakhchivan exclave. And guess what? The corridor is named after Donald Trump himself. Armenia Azerbaijan wanted to, please the ego of Donald Trump, and they were willing to name it after him. He more than willingly accepted this. So this proposed new corridor project is named after Donald Trump himself. It's the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP. So where exactly is this corridor being built? How is it relevant for India? India has some stakes in this region. That is what we need to understand. So this corridor will connect Azerbaijan from Baku on the Caspian Sea through the Zangezur corridor and gives Azerbaijan direct link to its exclave, the Nakhchivan exclave, will be directly connected to the rest of Azerbaijan, and it will further connect with Turkey and can be extended towards Europe. So it will create a new trade route and connectivity link from Europe to Turkey or Turkey, and via the Zangezur corridor in Armenia, it will connect up with Azerbaijan. Now, this was a route which Iran was considering to extend into Armenia and then further into Europe and Russia as part of INSTC project that involves India as well. India was also keen to make use of the Zangezur corridor to reach out into Armenia, extend the INSTC to Armenia so that it can be used to create alternate routes into Europe and Russia. So with Russia's influence weakened, Iran's influence weakened, and Trump pushing this new trade corridor, it establishes American dominance and also Turkey's influence, and as a result gives a upper hand to Azerbaijan as well. Is that clear? Again, look at the map here. I think you can get a better comparison between the TRIP and INSTC. The TRIP is the Trump route for infrastructure in this region, and INSTC is a India, Russia, Iran backed project. Under INSTC, the International North-South Transport Corridor that you can see here, the idea was to connect Iran's ports like Bandar Abbas, Chabahar with Indian ports through a maritime link and use Iran's road rail network to transport goods to Caspian Sea via this route towards Baku and towards Astrakhan, reaching Russia. And the goal is now to branch it out into Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, creating a Central Asian route as well. And there was a proposal to use the Zangezur corridor to link up with Armenia and extend it towards Turkey and Europe. This was the grand plan under INSTC. Now, with Trump's proposal, with Trump pushing for the Azerbaijan trade route via Armenian territory through the Zangezur corridor, it gives US a greater influence and almost undermines the INSTC project. Anyways, INSTC has struggled to take off because of sanctions on Russia and Iran, right? Or also because of the conflicts going on in this region. So this project, the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP, it is seen as a game changer in the Caucasus region. In the South Caucasus, with all the planned pipelines and transport corridors, Russia was seen as the key power. So now US and Turkey are playing a bigger role, which undermines Russian influence and in a way becomes a hurdle for INSTC project as well. Is it understood? And also please remember, in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, since Azerbaijan had taken support from Pakistan, India had backed Armenia, India became one of the key arms and weapons supplier to Armenia. India has supplied the Akash air defense systems. It has supplied the Rohini radars and several other armaments to strengthen Armenia's defense. So India Armenia have very close defense relations, and this is India's strategy to counter the Turkey Pakistan Azerbaijan nexus. So in that context, the Zangezur corridor and the trip route becomes very, very important. Now, the same corridor was used by India last year. That's why I'm saying Zangezur corridor is so important. It was in the news multiple times. The corridor was used by India under Operation Sindhu when India evacuated all the Indian students who were stuck in Iran when Iran was hit by Israel and United States. When the conflict between Iran and Israel took place, there have been multiple conflicts in recent months between Israel and Iran, and US also got involved in bombing the nuclear facilities. So during this military escalation, to protect the Indian community, especially the Indian students who study in Iran, they were evacuated to Armenia by the Indian embassy by using the Zangezur corridor, and from Armenia they were transported to India with commercial planes. So this is the evacuation India carried out under Operation Sindhu. So please look at the map. So by using the Zangezur corridor and the Norduz border crossing, this is the border crossing from Iran to Armenia. It's located at the Zangezur corridor. So from here, Indian students were carefully transported into Armenia, and from here they were flown back home to India. So under Operation Sindhu, we not only evacuated Indians from Iran, we also evacuated Indians from Israel as Iran was retaliating, carrying counter strikes against Israel. In Israel as well, a large Indian community was trapped. So here, India made use of the Taba border crossing. The Taba border crossing, which is a key crossing point from Israel to Egypt, to the Sinai Peninsula. So Taba border crossing was again in the news in Egypt. It is located at the Gulf of Aqaba. Gulf of Aqaba is a very unique region, a very narrow water body as part of the Red Sea trade route. This would be your Gulf of Suez and the Suez Canal here, right? That gives access to the Mediterranean. But the Tawa border crossing of Egypt, which connects Egypt with Israel, is located right next to Eilat, which is an Israeli border city. Then Jordan also has a border city here called Aqaba, after which the Gulf is named. That's why it's called Gulf of Aqaba, named after the border city of Jordan. So this Gulf is a very narrow water corridor where four countries are sandwiched. On the left, you have Egypt. Then towards the northwest, you have Israel. Towards northeast, you have Jordan. And towards the east, you have Saudi Arabia. Four countries are jam-packed into this narrow gulf, the Gulf of Aqaba. And this is what you need to remember. India made use of this region, the Taba border crossing, to safely bring Indians to Eilat in Israel and make them cross into Sinai Desert through the Taba border crossing into Egypt. From here, they were airlifted into India. So remembering such routes, locations, which have been in the news is very, very relevant for the exams. Now, coming to the next topic, which I had promised yesterday as well, we will talk about some of the developments in Bangladesh, especially prelims relevant topics. However, yesterday, while talking about the land boundary agreement, I made one factual error. I had a slip of mouth. So I would like to correct this and I apologize for that error. Yesterday, I had said that land boundary agreement was implemented through 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. So please forgive me for this slip of mouth. It's actually 100th Constitutional Amendment Act, not the 101st, right? So in the rush, I had mentioned 101st, so that's incorrect. Please make a correction. It's the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now we will talk about Bangladesh because there are major concerns for India. Under the interim government of Mohammad Yunus, Bangladesh has become hostile. Mohammad Yunus last year even threatened India by referring to Bangladesh as the guardian of Bay of Bengal. He even appeared to invite China to play a role in India's northeast, referring to the seven sister states. This had already triggered India. Now you have radical student leaders who basically toppled Sheikh Hasina's regime. They have formed this political party called NCP, National Citizen Party. They're also looking to contest the elections, which will happen next month. These radical student leaders also have been making very provocative speeches, issuing radical statements and threats against India. So they've called on India to essentially threaten us with regard to Siliguri corridor, the chicken's neck, which is a strategic choke point of India, which is the key access for us to the northeast region. These radical student leaders have threatened to cut off the Siliguri corridor and destabilize the seven sister states in the northeast by backing insurgency and terrorism against India. So, in this context, we need to look at some of the key developments which are happening here. There are few external forces who are getting involved overtly and covertly that poses a threat to Indian interests. So, Pakistan, for example, has embraced Mohammad Yunus's regime. It has been getting very, very close to Bangladesh, which is a matter of deep concern for India. Because the former government under Awami League, under Sheikh Hasina, she had managed to keep Pakistan as far away as possible. Sheikh Hasina single handedly had helped India to crack down on the terror groups and insurgent groups which were receiving support in Bangladesh, mainly from Pakistan's deep state. So today, Pakistan is embracing Bangladesh and they have re established a maritime link between Karachi and Chittagong. And this is something which is being considered as a strategic threat. Since many decades, this maritime link had been shut down. Since Bangladesh had a bitter memory with Pakistan and the genocide of 1971, Bangladesh had never really opened up towards maritime trade, especially under Awami League governments. So Sheikh Hasina had limited any such contact with Pakistan. So now that Sheikh Hasina is gone and a pro Pakistan government is in place, they have recently restarted the maritime connections between Karachi port and Chittagong. So please make a note of the maritime link. This is not only meant for trade. India has a fear that this route can be used to smuggle arms and drugs, which could be used to fuel Northeast insurgency and radical terror groups which are looking to act against India. So, the establishment of Karachi Chittagong maritime link that comes after many, many years will cut the travel time, improve logistics and trade opportunities, but it also creates a security risk for India, where Pakistan could misuse the trade route and start smuggling arms and drugs into the region in order to back the terror and insurgent groups which are looking to target India. Also, Pakistan, it organizes a multinational naval exercise called Aman. It's a Pakistani naval exercise where multiple countries are invited. All of the allies of Pakistan are invited, like China and the others. So, in the last year's edition, Bangladesh was also invited. This has raised serious concern for us. The close military engagement between Bangladesh Pakistan is something which is worrying India. We have even spotted Pakistani army officers carrying out multiple visits. ISI officials and operatives have been spotted. Lashkar operatives have been spotted, right? So that's where the threat lies for India. So please be aware of these developments. The Karachi Chittagong maritime link, it cuts the travel time and improves the trade logistics, and as well as Pakistan's multinational naval exercise called Aman. So last year's edition of Aman had Bangladeshi Navy also participating, and this leads to a major security risk for India. Now, coming to the role of Turkey in Bangladesh, we already mentioned the Turkey Pakistan nexus against India. I am sure all of you remember how during Operation Sindoor, Turkey was actively supplying arms and weapons to Pakistan during the middle of the conflict. Right? So Turkey has been quite hostile and problematic to India. So in Bangladesh as well, after the interim government came in place, Turkey has been sending huge supplies of arms and weapons, particularly the Bayraktar drones. Bangladesh has now procured Bayraktar drones from Turkey, and it is being spotted near India's Siliguri and the northeast, creating a security challenge. So maybe there could be a basic question on Bayraktar drones. Even Pakistan uses the Bayraktar drones. It was deployed during Operation Sindoor as well. Now, Bangladesh also has procured the Bayraktar drones that you see in the image. Turkey is emerging as a major defense player, exporting its arms and weapons, right? And it is seen as a pioneer in unmanned aerial vehicles, especially the Bayraktar drones. So please remember this one basic fact. Now, coming to China. China also has embraced Muhammad Yunus's regime and it is stepping up its projects and influence in the region. So there are few Chinese projects, locations that you should make a note of. China had already made big investments in the Chittagong port. Now it is pumping $500 million into Mongla port as well. These are the two strategic ports of Bangladesh. Previously, India was an investor in Mongla and Chittagong. So you are seeing China's Belt and Road Initiative being very active and String of Pearls being very active to counter the Indian influence and trying to encircle India in the region. So China already has big investments in Chittagong, and now they have pumped $500 million worth of investments into the strategic Mongla port in Bay of Bengal. Apart from that, China is also building a huge submarine base at Pekua. Please note this location as well. And this submarine base will be one of the largest submarine yards in the region. See, this Pekua submarine base can hold up to 8 submarines. But you know how many submarines Bangladeshi Navy has? They have only 2. So why is China building such a big yard which can host up to 8 submarines when Bangladeshi Navy has only 2 of them? This is the reason why India has a suspicion that probably Chinese Navy, the PLA Navy, could use the facility as a dual use facility. It appears to be a friendly gesture towards Bangladesh to strengthen its capabilities. But in reality, China could potentially make use of it and deploy or dock Chinese submarines, maybe nuclear powered, nuclear armed submarines, which could become a strategic threat, a serious security threat for India. So, this is the Pekua submarine yard or the submarine base that China is building in Bay of Bengal. It has also pumped $1 billion into the Teesta River project, which is still unresolved between India and Bangladesh. The Teesta River dispute remains unresolved because of the politics in West Bengal, and it's a long standing water sharing dispute. So, China is pumping $1 billion into the Teesta project, which could potentially have implications upstream in West Bengal and Sikkim. So, these are China's major investments which are happening in the region. Now, another important location is the Lal Monirhat Air Base that Bangladesh has leased now to China. There are reports that China is involved in reviving this World War era airbase, which was then in Bengal region, became part of East Pakistan. Now it's part of Bangladesh. It was largely a defunct airbase. So now Bangladesh is looking to revive it with Chinese assistance and support. Reportedly, Chinese engineers and troops have been seen, and they are reviving Lal Monirhat airbase. The concern for us is that it's barely 15 kilometers from the Indian border towards the northeast region. Siliguri is hardly 100 odd kilometers from Lal Monirhat. So it's hardly like a half an hour to 45 minutes distance by flight. So this potentially could serve as a Chinese air base where Chinese drones, probably surveillance planes, fighter jets could also be stationed, creating a significant threat for India's Siliguri and the northeast region. So Lal Monirhat Air Base is something you should note down. Then, when Sheikh Hasina's regime was targeted with large scale violent protests and eventually toppled, there were a lot of rumors about American involvement in backing the protesters to topple Sheikh Hasina's regime. Sheikh Hasina herself indicated this. She publicly said that a white diplomat, most likely a reference to American diplomat, had approached her asking for access to a strategic island of Bangladesh for an American military base. Though the rumors are largely dismissed and there is no way to verify them, this island, which was in news because Sheikh Hasina referred to it, she basically indicated Americans were meddling, interfering, and likely backing the protesters. We don't know whether it's true or not. We need not go into that direction, right? Let's leave that aside. But the island that Sheikh Hasina mentioned is nothing but the St. Martin's Island, located on the borders of Bangladesh and Myanmar, where the maritime boundary of Bangladesh Myanmar passes through. That's where St. Martin's Island is located. It's a key location in Bay of Bengal, as you can see. So there were reports that US is looking for military access to St. Martin's to set up a military base, potentially to counter China. Right? We have already understood China's presence here. Its investments in Mongla and Chittagong and the CMEC corridor, China Myanmar Economic Corridor. It has already allowed China to bypass Malacca Strait, right? Especially through the Kyokfu port. This is where Kyokfu port of China is located in Myanmar, facing Bay of Bengal. Right next to Kyokfu and Chittagong, you have St. Martin's Island, right in between Chittagong and Kyokfu. So you can understand the strategic significance of the island. And if at all US did make a move, right, you can understand why probably US was showing interest in St. Martin's Island to set up a military base here, because this would be a perfect position to counter China's projects and Chinese influence in the region. Whether the rumors are true or not doesn't matter for us. Leave that theory aside, conspiracies aside. The location of St. Martin's Island, which was regularly in the news, hitting global headlines, could become important for places in news question. Next, in response to these emerging threats, India has already been preparing. In response to Lal Monirhat Air Base being seen as a Chinese project now, India has started a parallel project in Tripura to revive a very old airfield known as Kailas Sahar. So please make a note of this location. This again is a largely unused airfield, which now the Indian Air Force is reviving and upgrading, making it operational so that India's key aircraft, including transport planes, fighter jets, could be potentially deployed, turning it into a key military facility of India, which can help counter both Bangladesh and China's presence in the region. This essentially creates a deterrence against Chinese presence and helps in securing Northeast India. So, this is another location you need to note down. So, during all these controversial developments, there have been references towards Bangladesh's chicken's neck as well. Since a lot of threats have been issued by Bangladeshi leaders against India's Siliguri corridor, there have been counterpoints being raised that if Bangladesh can threaten us at Siliguri, there are similar choke points for Bangladesh which India can cripple and completely cut off. One is located here in the Rangpur division, often referred to as the North Bangladesh corridor. It's barely 80 kilometers wide over here. Just 80 kilometers between West Bengal on one side, Meghalaya on the other side. So strategic experts believe that India could exert a pressure here, cut off Rangpur division, right, taking off this entire region, which could help expand India's Siliguri corridor. I'm not saying that these aggressive plans are being considered by India, but since the places are in news, the corridors are in news, it is important to be aware of them, right? That's where the exam relevance lies, not in the conspiracies. Then there is a second chicken's neck of Bangladesh in Chittagong. The entire Chittagong division, which even includes the strategic Chittagong port, can be cut off if this corridor is taken from Tripura to Bay of Bengal. This corridor is even narrow. It's barely 28 kilometers wide. If it is cut off, then Bangladesh's political capital and financial capital will be completely separated. Dhaka and Chittagong will be completely separated. These are seen as vulnerabilities and weak points of Bangladesh. So again, not as a diplomatic approach of India. This is not India's official position, but there have been discussions on Bangladesh chicken's neck as well. The North Rangpur corridor and the Chittagong corridor in the south. Just be familiar with these places, corridors, and locations. Now, moving on, let's talk about PM Modi's visits, the recent visits to Cyprus and also to Croatia. Last year, PM Modi focused heavily on Europe, especially central and eastern parts of Europe. They have become a new priority in India's foreign policy. PM Modi in the last 2 years has visited multiple countries in the region, including Ukraine, Poland, Austria. So the visit to Cyprus and Croatia in 2025 acquires a lot of strategic and economic significance. So, where are the countries located? Why are they important? Let's take a quick look. Cyprus is a small island nation located in the Mediterranean, and it is essentially locked in the middle of a conflict that involves Turkey and Greece. So it's a island country of Europe located here in the Mediterranean Sea, and it has a major conflict with Turkey that involves Greece as well. So please note down that this was the first visit of an Indian PM in more than 2 decades. India Cyprus, they do enjoy close ties. And the key point is Cyprus is a member of European Union. That gives added weight to Cyprus as a nation. It's a EU member, and India engaging with Cyprus, building economic strategic ties with Cyprus, sends a message to Turkey. It's a message to Turkey Pakistan nexus, right? That involves Azerbaijan and Bangladesh, Malaysia as well. As these countries are creating a nexus against India, India's alignment with Cyprus, Armenia, Greece creates a counter strategy. India's engagement with Armenia, Greece, and Cyprus can be seen as India's counter to this nexus involving Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Azerbaijan, backed by Turkey and Pakistan. Right? So that's a new axis that you see emerging. Now, what is this conflict involving Cyprus, Turkey, and Greece? This goes back to 1950s and 60s. See, in Cyprus, you have the Cypriots. And within Cypriots, you have two categories, the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots. So there has always been a political tussle between them. So in 1970s, Greece was involved in backing a coup to topple the then government to support the Greek Cypriots. So Turkey retaliated to protect the Turkish Cypriots, and it even carried out a military invasion. And this entire part of Cyprus, the northern part, it was taken by Turkish Cypriots with the backing of the Turkish military. And Turkish military maintains a military presence even today in the northern part of Cyprus. This is a separatist breakaway region that nobody in the world recognizes except for Turkey. Turkey is the only government which recognizes this part of Cyprus, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, as an independent nation, which is made up of Turkish Cypriots. No other country recognizes this breakaway region. It is seen as a disputed region and a breakaway region. Whereas Cyprus here, the Republic of Cyprus, which is the member of EU, it has tremendous support from Greece and other West European powers, resulting in a regional conflict and a rivalry between them. In fact, they have standing disputes over exclusive economic zone and maritime boundaries as well in the region. Please remember, this region is blessed with hydrocarbon reserves, this part of the Mediterranean. So, Greece and Turkey, they have a standing dispute, a maritime dispute over EEZ. Cyprus and Turkey also have a standing maritime dispute. So, given the nature of disputes, India could potentially play a role to create a stronger alliance against Turkey by working with Greece and Cyprus. That has been India's strategy. Like how India is countering Azerbaijan by working with Armenia and creating a counterbalance against the Turkey, Azerbaijan, Pakistan nexus. Similarly, here, India is working with Cyprus and Greece to create this alliance to counter the Turkey nexus with Pakistan and the others. So that's where this relationship acquires a lot of significance. In fact, Cyprus was one of the first European countries to openly condemn the Pahalgam attack and support India's Operation Sindoor. Right? It has blamed Pakistan for fueling cross-border terrorism against India without hesitation, unlike other European countries. So that again gives India a key influence in the European region. It has also supported India's entry into important international groups and organizations like Nuclear Suppliers Group. It supports our bid for a permanent seat at UN Security Council and completely backs India's position on Kashmir. So there is a strategic value to this visit. Plus, look at the economic value. If you focused on the map, you will realize where Cyprus is located, right in the Mediterranean between Israel and Greece and Italy. So, as a result, Cyprus can become a potential gateway to access Europe through the IMEC corridor, which has been proposed under the G20. In 2023 G20 summit hosted by India, when the IMEC project was launched, the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which is backed by US, Israel, France, UK, Germany, Italy, right? Greece also has become a part of it. UAE and Saudi Arabia, Jordan, all these major powers are part of the IMEC. So, since IMEC is passing through in the same route from Haifa port of Israel to the Piraeus port of Greece and Italy, it can be easily extended into Cyprus, creating a gateway into European markets, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. The Central Eastern European markets can become better accessible if IMEC can be extended via Cyprus and other countries present here in the Balkan region of Europe. So, this is like a new corridor for India to boost our trade, find new markets, increase our exports, and even drive investments from that region to India. So, please look at the map here. India is getting involved in energy collaboration with Cyprus. In the Eastern Mediterranean, as I told you, a lot of hydrocarbon deposits are found, particularly natural gas deposits. And there is a standing dispute here between Greece and Turkey and Cyprus and Turkey. This is mainly over the maritime boundary and the exclusive economic zones. So, India's involvement with Greece is a great friend of India. And Cyprus also has become a very good friend. So, this allows India to counter the Turkey axis and the other nexus it has created, right? Plus, it gives us a foothold in the Mediterranean and in the European region and give access to Central Eastern Europe through the IMEC project. See, this is where Haifa port is located of Israel, where the IMEC corridor will reach. So from here, Haifa, the route will reach the Piraeus port in Greece. So by linking this with Cyprus, we can open up new routes towards the Aegean Sea, towards the Balkan region located here in Europe, right? And towards Central and Eastern Europe. So back-to-back visits were carried out by the PM. After Cyprus, PM Modi visited Canada for the G7 summit, and on the way back, he went to Croatia, another important European country located in the same region, in the Balkans. So, why was this visit to Croatia important? Please see where Croatia is located. I want you to be aware of its location. It faces the Adriatic Sea, right? Quite close to Greece and Italy and Cyprus here. And this would be your Balkan region right here, where the Balkan mountain range is present. So previously, this was the country of Yugoslavia during the Cold War period, which was a great friend of India and one of the co-founders of the non-aligned movement. The then leader of Yugoslavia, Joseph Tito, was a very good personal friend of Prime Minister Nehru. They had common ideologies, and Yugoslavia was one of India's best friends in the region. We co-founded the non-aligned movement in 1960. So today, the region has become Balkanized. It has broken down into different countries. That's where the term Balkanization comes from. When Yugoslavia disintegrated into all these countries, right, the term Balkanization came up. So when a large country breaks up into small countries with conflicts and clashes, right, that the term used is Balkanization. That's where the term comes from the Balkan region. So Croatia borders Slovenia, Hungary, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, and still there are active conflicts here, especially between Serbia and Kosovo. So it's a very volatile region as well in that regard. But Croatia has some important ports and it can give great access towards Central and Eastern European markets. So that is the relevance of this visit. Croatia has even joined NATO. It is also a member of EU, thus giving us leverage with these critical groups, the NATO military alliance and the European Union. Right now, we are fast tracking the FTA talks with European Union. So these visits to Cyprus and Croatia, they have been very important in this regard. And look at the ports in Croatia. This can be part of a map-based question. Croatia has some of the most strategic ports in the Adriatic. It has important ports like Rijeka, Zadar, Šibenik, Split, Plos, Dubrovnik. Multiple ports located which give strategic access to the Mediterranean Sea. So as a result, India can easily extend the IMEC route. Since IMEC reaches Greece, Italy, and the Adriatic, it can be extended via Croatian ports all across the Balkan region that is in Southeast Europe and towards Central and East Europe. This is the advantage of engaging with a country like Croatia because it's part of the Trans European Transport Network, also called the Tent Corridor or the Tent Route. So, across Europe, there is this road rail connectivity under the Tent project, the Trans European Transport Network, which is crucial for movement of people and goods. So, if IMEC can be linked with Tent, it is going to be a great facilitator for trade, which can give India enormous access across the European markets. In fact, in this region, there's another European initiative, a transport initiative called the Three Seas Initiative, also called the 3SI or TSI, the Three Seas Initiative to link the Baltic Sea in Northern Europe with the Adriatic Sea and the Black Sea to create this transport triangle, which is mainly focused on Central and Eastern Europe. So, connecting the seas through a network of road rail projects has been a priority for these European countries which are located in this triangle. So, connecting IMEC with the Three Seas initiative will give India tremendous access across the European market. So, that is the relevance of this visit, the importance. So, please make a note of these projects and corridors, the Tent Corridor, the 3C initiative, the ports in Croatia, they are all very relevant. Next, the tragedy in Sudan, the genocide, which was reported a few months ago. So, we'll not go into all the details, only prelims related facts will pick it up. So, Sudan is a key African country located in the Sahel region. Right? This would be the African Sahel that stretches from the Atlantic, including countries like Mauritania, Mali, Niger, and Chad and Sudan, stretching till the Red Sea. So this entire stretch of sub-Saharan Africa, right? This is something which is part of the Sahel region. So Sudan is not new to such conflicts. It is going through genocides and civil wars for many decades. So recently, large-scale fighting has erupted between two major armed groups. One is the Sudanese Armed Forces, which took over control from the then Sudanese dictator Omar al-Bashir in 2021-22 and established a military dictatorship. The Sudanese armed forces, they are supported primarily by Saudi Arabia and many other key powers in the region and beyond the region. According to reports, even Russia, Iran, all of them back the Sudanese armed forces. Whereas now they are facing a rival threat from RSF, a paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Forces, which was supported by the former dictator, Omar al Bashir. So the Rapid Support Forces mainly comprise of Arab militias called the Janjaweed militias. In early 2000s, they had committed a brutal genocide in the western parts of Sudan, mainly targeting the non-Arabs, the Africans, on the lines of ethnicity and religion. So today, RSF is backed by United Arab Emirates. The UAE has been playing a critical role and it has been arming and funding the RSF. So last year, the RSF committed brutal atrocities towards the Darfur region. This is where the RSF is primarily in control towards Western Sudan, whereas the capital Khartoum and the eastern part is under the control of Sudanese armed forces. So these are some basic facts that you should be aware of. This is your Darfur region where the RSF is in control. This is the other side, the eastern part where the Sudanese armed forces are in control. So this is a fight not just about power, ethnicity. It's a fight for resources, a fight for control, for influence. Because see, Sudan has a strategic port, Port Sudan, facing the Red Sea, which is a critical trade route, right? And in Darfur region, there's lot of gold deposits, which the UAE is apparently eyeing to gain access to the gold reserves by backing the RSF. And UAE wants to become a major player in the region to counter Iran, Saudi, Israel, and even Turkey and the other powers in the region. So it has been supplying arms and weapons and funds directly involved in this conflict. And last month, the RSF forces committed a brutal atrocity. The place where this atrocity happened is called Al Fasher. Al Fasher, there's a different spelling as well. They captured the city of Al Fasher, targeted the non Arab Africans, and committed a brutal slaughter, killing thousands and thousands of people. And this is referred to as the Sudanese genocide. Clear? So near Al Fasher, there is a refugee camp, which I would like to mention because UPSC has a great liking for refugee camps in Africa. There have been two such questions which have been asked in the past about refugee camp locations in Africa. So please pay attention. The Zam Zam refugee camp. It's one of the largest refugee camps in Africa, located in Darfur, near the city of Al Fasher, where the genocide was carried out. So, the Zamzam refugee camp was in news last year when RSF forces targeted the non Arabs here, committed the genocide. Lakhs of people were slaughtered at the Zamzam refugee camp by RSF forces. Clear? So, please remember these basic facts. Next, coming back to our neighborhood, our neighbor Myanmar was in the news mainly because of the cyber scam compounds which have flourished in Southeast Asia in the Golden Triangle region. The Golden Triangle, which includes Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, and of late even Cambodia. This has always been a hub of organized criminal activity, from drug trafficking to arms trafficking to human trafficking, wildlife trafficking. All such criminal activities have flourished in the Golden Triangle. So, this is nothing new. The new component here is the emergence of cyber scams and cyber fraud centers, which has become a serious threat for India and many countries across the world. See, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, they have been a hub of illegal casinos and gambling centers for many years. Most of these illegal activities are controlled by Chinese criminal mafias, owned by Chinese mafiosas. So there's an entire nexus which operates. So the authoritarian leadership which is present in some of the countries here, they get a commission from these criminal activities. Like Myanmar's military dictatorship, the military junta, the Tatmadaw, they have been getting the commission from these Chinese mafias and they allow these illegal activities to flourish. But now, because of all sanctions, casinos, gambling has taken a hit. Because of a lot of global scrutiny, other illicit activities also have taken a backseat. And the easiest way to earn money for these gangsters and criminal groups has been the cyber fraud route or the cyber scam centers. So many such centers have flourished in this region. Countries across the world have been targeted. India has been one of the biggest victims. So all the scam calls, messages you get, the fraudulent investment messages you receive, crypto investments on Telegram or WhatsApp, or the digital arrest frauds which are happening, right? Or even the romance-based scams, honey traps which are being carried out, right? They use your personal data, lure the victims either by threatening or fear, instilling fear in them, right? Or through luring them in a relationship and then pushing them to invest huge sums of money and looting their money and even their data. So many Indians also have been recruited by these criminal scamsters. So youth from across the world, they have been duped in the name of jobs, right? Those who are desperately looking for jobs, they use the human trafficking cartels and the middlemen. And in the name of a job, they are taken here to Thailand or Vietnam or Cambodia. From there, they are snatched and kidnapped and locked in these cyber compounds as cyber slaves. Cyber slavery is something which has become a serious concern. Thousands of Indians are reportedly trapped even today in these scam centers. Passports are snatched, they're essentially beaten, tortured, or they're given unrealistic targets to meet. Their goal is to use them so that they can speak Indian languages and target other Indians to make them victims of these cyber frauds. Right? That's why when you get those scam calls, they can speak in your language. They can speak Punjabi, Marathi, Hindi, or even Kannada, Tamil. That's because they have recruited Indians from across the country through these human trafficking cartels. And they're forcing them to work here under very dangerous conditions. And this is a cyber slavery which has flourished in the region. So this was in the news because Myanmar has carried out targeted military strikes on KK Park compound, which was one of the biggest scam centers. It almost looks like an industry or an IT park from the outside. So it was functioning with the blessings of the military regime as they were getting a commission from it. But due to international pressure, right now Myanmar is also blacklisted by FATF. It's on FATF's blacklist for failing to counter money laundering and terror financing. So, to evade the effect of sanctions and to create a better global image, it has carried out a coordinated and co orchestrated military attack on KK Park compound. So, there might be a prelims question. The KK Park compound in the news refers to what or where is it located? It's located on the borders of Myanmar with Thailand near the city of Mesot. Mesot is where India Myanmar Thailand highway will connect, a critical project under the Look East Act East policy of India. So from India to Myanmar to Thailand, this highway, which is being built, right, it goes through the border town of More in Manipur and connects with Yangon and Naypyidaw in Myanmar and reaches Mesot in Thailand. So it's right next to this. This is the border. That's where the KK compound was located. Many Indians were trapped. More than 500 Indians were present. So, following this attack by the Myanmar military at KK Park compound, all the cyber workers who were trapped, cyber slaves, they fled into Mesot, including hundreds of Indians, and they've all been rescued by the Indian embassies located here. Right? So, India is very actively working to rescue the Indians. So, in the neighboring country of Laos, there is a similar facility called Golden Triangle SEZ, Special Economic Zone. If you Google this place, you will not even believe that it's a scam center and a criminal center. It looks like a business district. It looks like a shopping mall complex and IT complex like Noida or Gurgaon or Bangalore, right? But actually a huge cyber scam facility in Laos. It's called the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. Here as well, a lot of Indians have been tricked and deceived, and they have been trapped as cyber slaves. The next topic, G2 and APEC. The G2 and APEC. At the APEC summit last year, there was a big breakthrough between US and China. After Trump had targeted China with tariffs, right, countering China, restricting China, China had retaliated with counter tariffs. And China had even blocked the export of rare earth material and magnets. So this managed to bring pressure on the US. China used all its leverage to hit back at Trump's policies, and China managed to convince US to talk and negotiate. And at the APEC summit, which was held in South Korea last year, US China, they reached a breakthrough. They have toned down the tensions, the tariffs have been brought down. China also has made concessions, and US also has shown some concessions. Now, that's not important. That's more of a mains topic. But what is APEC and what is this G2, which was in the news during APEC summit? That is important for prelims. So let's only focus on the prelims part of it. During this meeting between US and China, Trump proposed the idea of establishing the G2, or a group of two, which is a grouping of two of the biggest powers of the world, that is US and China. So the concept of a G2, like G7, G20, it goes back to 2005 when C. Fred Bergsten proposed that US and China, the two big major powers, if they work together, protect their respective interests, they can deal with all the global challenges. Essentially, like a mini lateral, right, where only two powers will get to decide the future fate of the world. So, this idea was indeed considered by previous US governments as well, but it has never been formally concretized or set up. So, when Trump started posting about G2, he tweeted, he put it on social media, right, saying that the G2 is back. The G2 has never been set up, it doesn't exist. But again, you know Trump's knowledge and you know Trump's mistakes that he makes in each and every speech. Right? The G2 doesn't exist, but the idea has been floated in the past. So when Trump posted that G2 is back, it has raised the fear that probably US China are considering to collude together, work together, carve out their spheres of influence, and ensure they don't target each other, but they will retain their theaters of influence. So, such a division of the world between two superpowers could be detrimental to the interests of middle powers like India. That's where it has relevance. So, there could be a basic question on what is G2, who proposed this term, proposed by C. Fred Bergsten, and it's a proposed idea. It's just a imaginary idea of US China working together as two great powers, controlling all global affairs just between them. And what is this APEC? APEC is a very important grouping, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. In the past, there has been one prelims question related to APEC. So please go through the basic facts. Set up in 1989, focused on regional economic ties of the Asia Pacific countries. It has 21 top economies. They account for more than 50% of the global GDP. It mainly brings together the littorals of the Pacific, like United States, there is Japan, Southeast Asian countries, China, right, Canada, all these major countries of the Pacific Rim, they are part of it. So India is not a member. India has tried for membership. We have applied, but it has been rejected. We have tried multiple times. India has been rejected mainly because we are not a Pacific Rim country. We're not part of Asia Pacific, right? India is more of a Indian Ocean country, Indo-Pacific country, not a Asia Pacific country or a Pacific Rim country. So India has been admitted as an observer state. India holds the observer status. We are not a full-time member. So this map helps you understand all the members of the APEC, one of the most important economic groupings that brings all the big Pacific states together, right? From Mexico to Peru, Chile, Russia, China, US, Japan, Southeast Asian economies, Australia, New Zealand, they're all part of the APEC group. Next, the ASEAN summit also made a lot of news in 2025. So let's quickly go through the key outcomes. The ASEAN summit, the 47th summit in 2025, was hosted in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. And the key takeaways was the addition of the 11th member to the group, which is East Timor or Timor Leste, joined as the 11th member state of ASEAN. Please make a note. Apart from that, Finland signed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation with the ASEAN group. What is this Treaty of Amity and Cooperation? This is a ASEAN treaty brought out in 1976 that the close friends of ASEAN sign. ASEAN members themselves have signed it. They pledge peaceful relations, friendly ties. Also, they've declared the region as a nuclear weapon free zone. Right? Southeast Asia is a nuclear weapon free zone. So, the close partners of ASEAN, India also has signed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. So, Finland has become the latest country to sign the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation of the ASEAN group. So, please make a note of this. Then, finally, Mr. Trump, he brokered another ceasefire. Right? Trump is the negotiator in chief, the mediator in chief. Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire, which apparently brought the conflict to an end. But as you know, it has broken out again. Right? The ceasefire has been violated. But this agreement was signed, the Kuala Lumpur Accord, which is a peace agreement between Thailand and Cambodia. The ceasefire agreement was signed. So, coming to the Thailand-Cambodia conflict, which was also one of the big topics of last year, the conflict between the two is mainly centered around a Hindu temple, which could be relevant for our exams. On the Thai-Cambodia border, you have this ancient Hindu temple, the Priya Vihar temple, which is the site of the dispute. You can see the location here. This is where the Priya Vihar temple is located on the borders of Thailand and Cambodia. So this temple is it's a Shiva temple dedicated to Lord Shiva, built by the Khmer regime, the Khmer Hindu regime that existed here centuries ago. So it's located on the Dangrek mountain range, and this matter has always been a disputed matter between the two sides. The border passes right through the Dangrek mountains, and the temple is located right on the border line, the zero line. So the matter had reached International Court of Justice in 1960. In 1962, ICJ had delivered the award stating that the temple belongs to Cambodia and Cambodia had been given the sovereignty over this region surrounding the temple near the border areas. But Thailand has never accepted this. So it's a deep source of enmity and nationalism between both the sides. And it has been a big political issue as well, which has now flared up in the form of a big conflict. And by the way, this so-called ceasefire of Mr. Trump has already broken down and fresh clashes and fighting have already taken place. This peace accord is the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord. Next, two major weapon systems that shook the world last year, the Burevestnik and Poseidon. both developed by Russia, something that led to a shock wave across the world. The Burevestnik is a nuclear armed cruise missile. That's what makes the Burevestnik so deadly, so spectacular. The cruise missiles, usually they fly at supersonic speeds, right? And another nature of a cruise missile is that it's a low flying missile. It flies quite close to the surface, unlike your ballistic missiles, right? Just like BrahMos, for example. And they're quite accurate. It's almost difficult to intercept them because of their high speed, right? Most air defense systems will fail against good supersonic missiles. But the Burevestnik is not powered by any ordinary propellant. It is powered by a miniaturized nuclear reactor, according to Russia's claims. Though Russia's claims are disputed, it's hard to believe that such a small compressed nuclear reactor can be built. But Russia has claimed it has tested it, and it means it has endless power. It can keep flying for hours, days, years together. And this gives enormous deterrence capability, as it can even carry a nuclear warhead and would become very deadly in case of a battle. Russia claims it can easily be pushed closer to hypersonic speeds. The NATO call sign for the missile is a Skyfall. That's the NATO name for the Burevestnik. So it usually flies very close to the surface. It can remain in air indefinitely, as it is claimed to be powered by a nuclear engine, and it can carry a nuclear warhead, making it one of the most deadliest weapons ever developed. Then a similar weapon, underwater weapon, was tested. The Poseidon. Don't confuse this with P-8I Poseidon, which is a transport plane of the US, right? And a surveillance plane of the US. This is a nuclear powered torpedo. A nuclear powered torpedo, a miniature nuclear engine powering the torpedo forever, and it also can carry nuclear warheads. So if it is deployed, it can keep roaming the seas and oceans for years and decades, as the fuel is unlimited, right? And at the right time, Russia could place it near a coastal city, the target city, and detonate it. And it can potentially trigger what experts are calling as a radioactive tsunami that can decimate and wipe out the entire coastal city. This is even referred to as a doomsday weapon, something that could trigger a World War III and possibly wipe out humanity, as you know. So, these two deadly weapon systems, Russia has claimed to have successfully tested, though there are doubts whether such nuclear based propulsion can be developed. Is that clear? Though it's technically possible, there are many practical challenges. Russia has a lot of technical limitations and hurdles as well, right? So some are doubting the claims, but please remember the Burevestnik and Poseidon and why they were relevant. Then coming to Putin's visit to India, there are few prelims related details. See, this was the first visit of Russian President Putin after the Ukraine war started. You all know about India's balanced position, how India has sided with Russia, right? We have bypassed all the Western sanctions. India has become one of the biggest buyers of Russian oil, and India has never condemned or criticized Russia for invading Ukraine. And at any voting at the UN, India has abstained from all the votes, thus signaling a more balanced position. So, this was the first time Putin was visiting India after the Ukraine war to participate in the 23rd India Russia annual summit. It's a clear sign to Western countries, particularly to the US, which has been blackmailing India with its tariffs, threatening India and forcing India to break its ties with Russia, particularly India's procurement of Russian oil, right? So there were some key facts which made the headlines during Putin's visit. Both countries have decided to scale the trade volume to $100 billion by 2030. Right now, the bilateral trade is around 50 to $60 billion. Most of it is India buying oil from Russia. Almost 40, $45 billion out of the trade is India buying Russian oil. So it's not a balanced trade. India's exports to Russia is very limited. So they have set a goal to more than double this and take it beyond $100 billion by the end of the decade. This was one key outcome. Russia has signed the RELOS, a long standing military logistics exchange agreement. It was proposed more than a decade ago. After a lot of hurdles, finally, both India and Russia have managed to sign the RELOs, reciprocal exchange of military logistics. This will allow Indian forces to make use of Russian military facilities if required, and vice versa. So, this enhances the operational reach of your Air Force and Navy, as you can rely on foreign military bases for logistical backing, for logistical support like refueling, servicing, etc. Another key outcome was the maritime routes that India Russia are pursuing. India Russia are building a eastern maritime link to create a shorter route between India Russia connecting Chennai and Vladivostok. Chennai is being linked with Vladivostok, the Siberian city in Russia's far east, where India already has some big investments. India has extended a $1 billion line of credit for investments in Russian Far East. It's a region blessed with immense resources, from hydrocarbons to gold, diamonds, critical minerals, everything is present here. Russia alone can't harness the resources because of the remoteness and the sparse population present here. The climate is very harsh, sub-zero temperatures, permafrost conditions, right? So Russia depends on other partners like India. There are many Indian companies which have invested already, right? Tata Power, for example, operates a coal mine and a coal plant. There are other Indian companies in various sectors of mining. Then ONGC Videsh Limited has invested in the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Sakhalin oil and gas reserves. So India has plenty of investments in this region. So creating a shorter link via Malacca through South China Sea will significantly reduce the travel time and improve the logistics. Because traditional shipping route is through Suez Canal Red Sea route. As you know, this shipping route from India to Russia is very long, takes almost 1.5 to 2 months sometimes. The cost and time is, it simply, it acts as a deterrent against trade. So creating a shorter link, the Chennai Vladivostok route, it serves multiple purposes for India Russia. It can improve trade, give access to resources for India, improve Indian exports as well. And from here, we can exercise influence towards the North Pole, towards the Arctic, as Russia is inviting India to take part in the Northern Sea Route project. As Arctic ice is melting, Russia, China, others, they are clearing the ice using icebreaker ships. Russia has even deployed a nuclear powered icebreaker to clear the ice caps. And Russia is reactivating its Soviet era naval bases and ports across the North Pole. So Russia wants to establish a viable trading route via the Bering Strait here between Alaska and Siberia, and connect this so that Eastern and Western Hemisphere will come closer. And this could be hugely beneficial. This will be a much shorter route for India Europe trade as well, compared to the Red Sea Suez Canal route. That's another topic which was in the news. So we are almost at the end of the session. Last four topics to go. Let's quickly wrap it up. The new national security strategy of the United States under President Trump. So under the new national security strategy, United States has re-emphasized the importance of its Western Hemisphere to bring back focus of United States into the Americas region, North America, Central America, and South America. So US is bringing back its explicit focus on the Western Hemisphere, meaning it wants to redeploy its diplomatic military focus in its own backyard and protect its core influence in the strategic backyard of the US. So US doesn't want any interference here from China, Russia, or any other hostile power. That explains American hostility against Venezuela, the recent US military action where the former president Nicolas Maduro was captured and taken, and the continued American threats against Cuba, Mexico, Colombia, and others. This is in line with the new national security policy of the US, right? So the NSS is a document, it's a guiding document for US foreign policy and military and intelligence policy. So experts are saying that this is a revival of the Monroe style doctrine. So what is this Monroe doctrine? This is where you might get a question. Mr. Donald Trump now calls it Monroe doctrine, naming it after himself. So the Monroe Doctrine dates back to 1823. Then US President Monroe, James Monroe, He brought out this foreign policy security doctrine to keep out European colonial powers from the Americas region, to keep out the British, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, even the Danes, and to draw this line separating Europe from the Americas, stating that this region belongs to United States, meaning US should be the only dominant power across the Americas, from North America to Central America to the Latin America region. So Donald Trump's policies under the new national security strategy aligns with the Monroe Doctrine. So there could be a historical question on the Monroe Doctrine itself. Coming to the next topic, another peace deal, again negotiated by Donald Trump, right? The Congo-Rwanda peace deal, where US is the mediator. So what is this conflict between them? The places which were in news. That is something which is very important. The Congo-Rwanda conflict goes back to the Rwanda genocide of 1990s. See, this is the DRC, right? A major country blessed with immense resources. As I mentioned earlier, while talking about Zambia, DRC is also blessed with critical and strategic minerals, lithium, cobalt, and many other resources. The neighboring country, Rwanda, located here, they have a long standing issue between them, which is rooted in the ethnic conflict of the region between the Hutu tribe and the Tutsi tribe. I'm sure all of you must have heard of the 94 Rwandan genocide, on which many movies, documentaries also have been made. A deadly, unfortunate incident where Hutu militias slaughtered lakhs of Tutsis, committing one of the most brutal human atrocities in recent times. Right? In Rwanda, where a Hutu dominated militia came to power, they slaughtered the Tutsis en masse, killing them in very, very large numbers, committing this horrific genocide. Later, the Hutus were driven out. The Hutu militias were driven out into DRC, particularly into the Kivu region. You can see here the North Kivu, South Kivu region, right? The capital here is Goma, which is in the news. Okay. It is located next to Lake Kivu. In geography, you would have studied about the Great Lakes of Africa, right? Kivu is part of the same basin. So next to Lake Kivu, you have the Kivu region, the North and South Kivu. So the Hutu militias were driven out when Rwanda came under the rule of the Tutsi-led government. Clear? This is post-genocide. After the genocide had happened, the Tutsis managed to come back to power. Hutu militias were driven out. Now the Tutsis, who held anger, who wanted revenge, and also they wanted to protect Tutsis in DRC. There are Tutsi minorities in DRC as well. So their fear was the Hutus will now target them. The Hutu militias have always been a threat. And Rwanda accuses DRC of backing and funding the Hutu militias. Is that clear? So Rwanda started backing the Tutsi militias known as the M23. The M23 rebels, the notorious rebels of the Kivu region, they are Tutsis essentially, armed and sponsored by Rwanda as part of its covert war with DRC and Hutu tribes and militias. So DRC backing the Hutu militias on one side, Rwanda backing the Tutsi M23 rebels on the other side. This is a classic covert proxy war. And the war has many other dimensions. It's not just about ethnic conflict and the genocide. It's also about the fight for resources. US, Russia, and other powers are also involved because they are mainly behind the resources of the region, and backing such conflicts is one way of getting hold of the resources over here. So please remember the basic location or the ethnic nature of the conflict. And this is the conflict which Trump claims to have resolved. But again, it is highly doubtful if the peace will last because Trump's peace process has not addressed the ethnic division. It has not addressed the strong feelings of hatred, which goes back to the Rwandan genocide. The Hutu Tutsi rivalries have not been taken into account. Right now, using pressure, US has simply convinced DRC and Rwanda to agree for a ceasefire. So this is like putting a small band-aid on a very big wound. Right? Someday it's going to burst and it will again erupt, just like Thailand and Cambodia. Right? So Donald Trump does deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. Now coming to next topic. Very small topics from now, just few more minutes. Operation Sagar Bandhu. This was India's relief mission to provide HADR assistance, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief to our neighboring country, Sri Lanka, which suffered significant damage due to Cyclone Ditwa. Cyclone Ditwa caused enormous damage to life and property and infrastructure. So India dispatched disaster relief. Indian Navy was actively deployed with disaster response forces like NDRF, and we provided food, aid, medicines, and India played a critical role in trying to bring normalcy back into the disaster hit Sri Lanka. Next, India-Nepal military exercise was in the news. This exercise is named Surya Kiran, the military exercise between the two armies of India and Nepal. Similarly, note down the China-Nepal army exercise. It's called Sagar Mata. So if India, Nepal have Surya Kiran army exercise, then China, Nepal have the Sagar Mata army exercise. Coming to the last topic, the defense topic, which was in the news, which I think is a significant development. INS Arnala was commissioned into service by the Indian Navy. Now, why is this so significant? INS Arnala is a unique class of ships which India is inducting, and its specialization is anti-submarine warfare in shallow waters near the coastline. Because see, today countries are deploying mid-jet submarines, unmanned robotic vessels, and even small mid-jet submarines are being deployed in large numbers across the world. And we are seeing their usage in conflicts like Russia-Ukraine conflict. So, to deal with small mid-jet submarines and these submersibles, which can be autonomously operated, right, like a drone. So, to deal with that, you need a vessel like INS Arnala, which has special equipment to detect them and launch counter strikes on them. So, it can be used in coastal waters, very close to your coastline, inside your territorial waters, even in the internal waters near lagoons and estuaries. There is a possibility of enemy submarines sneaking through the small midget submarines and unmanned underwater vehicles. So, to detect them and to counter them, vessels like INS Arnala are being deployed. It's an entire class, a fleet of ships being developed largely indigenously, developed by the Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers based out of Kolkata. Almost 80% of the components are indigenous. So this again highlights the defense indigenization which is going on, and it's a key platform that ensures your coastal security. Yeah, that's why I feel INS Arnala can be very important. So with this, we have covered 21 themes with easily 40 to 45 topics, subtopics discussed. I hope the session has been useful. Now, please remember tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please don't forget this. As part of the practice stage of the free special classes, tomorrow at 11 a.m., I will be taking up a MCQ session on all these topics to help you practice questions and revise them again so that you don't have to read these topics again for the prelims. These classes will be on the Unacademy app. The link for the same is provided in the video description. So please enroll now and join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the morning, and we'll discuss lots and lots of MCQs. So that's it. If you liked the session, enjoyed it, understood everything, if you feel it will help in your prelims, please comment. Ensure the video reaches more students, share it with other aspirants, and do press the like button. That's it. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good night.